The story starts with this dude and this chick going on a date. They got this crazy idea to jump into a hardcore river together, tied up and all so they can be together forever. But Dan Fate pulls a nasty trick on them because out of nowhere, this evil truck Cohen rolls up, smashing through the forest like a madman and takes them both out. Fast forward a bit, our main man, Osamu, wakes up and he's straight up mind blown by what he sees. This fine lady explains it ain't heaven, but she's a guide for peeps like him who end up in this world. She goes by Annette and she spills that Osamu got chosen and transported to this whole new world. A fearsome dragon flies by as Annette explains that this world is all dark and messed up, and Osamu's got to be the hero to bring some damn light to it. But Osamu doesn't see himself as no hero. He was just some regular dude trying to off himself with his girl, and now he's stuck in this strange-ass world. Annette's getting ready to give him some motivational speech to make him want to be a hero, but she's straight up shocked when Osamu does his thing and ODs on some poison pills. Annette cleanses his body of the toxins, but Osamu says that she's just bothering him. Annette straight up demands that Osamu become a hero and fulfill his crazy mission of saving this messed up world. But Osamu is just looking for a way to stop living, so he keeps munching on the pills, but Annette reminds him that he's the freaking chosen one. Osamu fires back, saying he never asked to be chosen. But Annette drops the knowledge that Truck Kun is actually a truck from another world that does some selection stuff. Out of all the unhappy people in Osamu's old world, only the ones struck by Otherworld Truck Kun get a chance to redo their lives in this new world. It's like a freaking world transfer service from Annette's world. Getting hit by Truck Kun means he was feeling hella miserable in his old life, so he got this chance in the new world. Osamu finishes off popping some more pills and he's all pissed, saying that dumb truck messed up the happiest moment of his life, his plan to peace out. He straight up tells Annette they ain't got no right to decide he was unhappy, but from her perspective, she saved him from a life so damn miserable that he was ready to end it all. Annette eventually decides Osamu's whining ain't worth jack because he's bound to change his tune once he peeps his stats. Every single human brought to her world gets gifted with some crazy superhuman powers, but damn, she's shocked when she finds out Osamu's weak as hell. Dude's got only one measly hit point and he is also still poisoned even after she detoxed him. Annette straight up can't believe someone could be this weak, so she goes on a desperate search, hoping to find some special skill or badass ability in Osamu. And damn, she's horrified when she discovers he's got absolutely nothing. She's never seen such a weak otherworlder in her life. Sick as a dog, Osamu tries to bounce, but Annette stops him and finally admits he must have ended up in this world by mistake. She figures that he won't be able to survive in this world, and she's shocked when Osamu finally shows a bit of confidence. He straight up tells her that what she just said sounds more like his real life. Osamu explains that he's always been labeled a failure, no matter which damn world he's in. Annette apologizes again for the screw-up and asks him to stick around for a bit. This world's mad dangerous, filled with monsters and whatnot, so if his life's gonna be over the second he steps outside. But Annette's stunned when Osamu tells her not to sweat it because he's looking for his final resting place anyway. The reason she's so shocked is because Osamu is unlike anyone else she's ever met. Annette used to take pride in guiding otherworlders, getting all hyped up to meet them. But soon she realized how stuck up and full of themselves they were. She felt like all she did was kiss heroes' asses all day, so she shut herself off. But now her whole world's been flipped because Osamu's a whole different breed. Osamu gets ready to step into the dangerous new world, but Annette begs him to at least choose a profession first. Dude straight up declares he doesn't need a profession because he's born a Dan writer. And with that, he bids farewell to the girl with the beautiful ears. As he leaves, Annette dramatically declares that she finally gets it. The thing she's been waiting for all along was for this man to enter her life. Outside, Osamu realizes he can't read the writing in this world, but he knows there ain't gonna be any cafes for him to chill at. Suddenly, a voice pops into his head, announcing that he scored 5 experience points for discovering a new area. Osamu wishes that annoying voice would shut up because he's got migraines and all. But then an even louder voice declares that Osamu leveled up to level 2. Just then, a tree comes crashing down and a girl screams as she gets attacked by a monster. She pleads with Osamu to help her because he's an adventurer, but Osamu just stares at her, thinking about how people in this world got some funky ear shapes. She keeps begging for his aid, but Osamu straight up asks for her permission to write a novel about her. Eventually, Osamu realizes that she actually wants him to save her, so he tells her to hold on a second. He half-heartedly tries to reach out to her, but ends up saying he can't reach out. She asks him to use a sword or cast a spell or something, but the monster grabs hold of Osamu too. All he says is that he can't breathe, and the girl explains that the tree is siphoning their life force. They only have a few minutes left before their lives are over, but Osamu says that's a damn good news. He finds joy in his final moments and says his goodbyes to the world. The girl begs him not to give up, but Osamu ain't responding at all. She's stunned that her life's gonna end in such a weird way, but she's even more shocked when the tree gets engulfed in darkness and explodes. Osamu, against all odds, is still alive, much to his disappointment. And that voice announces that Osamu dealt 300 damage with his poison. The girl is straight up blown away as this dude, in the midst of this epic adventure, takes down the monster by making it absorb his poison instead of his life force. Osamu levels up to level 3, and the girl wonders if he is poisoning himself. Then she starts wondering why he's fronting like he is weak when he is actually pretty damn strong. But Osamu explains that this kind of crap always happens to him. Dude wants to stop existing, but somehow he keeps surviving. He's tried to off himself to the afterlife 5 times, but it never goes right. At one point, the girl has no clue why he's so down in the dumps, but she's grateful he saved her life, so she thanks him. She offers to take him to her house so he can rest, and he introduces himself. But when Osamu touches her hand, he's reminded of his girl Sachin and wonders if she ended up in this world too. The girl gets all pissed and tells him her name is not Sachin. She tries to drop her real name on him, but Osamu's already daydreaming about Sachin. The girl gets hella frustrated because he's straight up ignoring her, but he got a legit reason. Osamu just found a purpose to live in this new world. He goes over his last memory with his girl and declares that he's gonna find Sachin wherever she is in this world. His declaration ain't exactly what it seems because he want to find her so they can commit double unalive again. Meanwhile, Annette is praying to the god of her world, hoping they protect Osamu. She also wishing to meet him again someday, and her wish comes true when Osamu comes back. She couldn't be happier to see him, but she's straight up shocked when his new cat girlfriend is there too. Annette can't even believe he already has a girl by his side. But she keeps it cool because Osamu has a question. He want to know if Annette met a girl named Sachin. Annette is straight up horrified to hear there's a third woman in the mix. Osamu bounces because Annette got no info on Sachin, but the cat girl reassures him he gonna find her. She want to swing by the castle town of Roth before hitting her house, but she is shocked when Annette appears, trying to stop them from holding hands. Annette thinking that's some shameless behavior, but the cat just want to know why Annette tagging along. Annette is too shy to answer, so the cat figures it out. She must be in love with Osamu. Of course, Annette denies it and says it's just her job to protect the weak otherworlder. Being an otherworlder is why the cat realizes Osamu is so damn strong. But Annette says that he is actually weak as hell. The two start arguing about how weak he is, but the cat spittles that Osamu killed a monster and saved her life. Annette is horrified because saving her life means they got close, and she starts calling the girl a thieving cat. Right then, Osamu announces he found something dope, a real comfy bed. But it's actually a freaking coffin, and he tells the girls to wake him up when they reach the town. Osamu says goodnight to Annette and Tama, but the cat is all mad because that ain't her name. Osamu was already knocked out though, and Annette shyly points out that he called her the right name. So Annette takes on the task of dragging Osamu in his coffin, but Tama wonders if that really her job as a clergyperson. As they keep walking, Tama's getting fed up with driving that damn coffin around, so she tells Osamu to get out and walk on his own 2 feet. But there's no response, and she starts worrying that Osamu might have actually kicked the bucket somehow. Annette checks his stats, and Osamu seems to be fine, so he's probably just knocked out. They're pretty close to the castle anyways, so Annette asks Tama to suck it up a bit longer so they don't have to wake him up. Meanwhile, inside the coffin, Osamu's peacefully dreaming about his beloved Sachin. And no matter where she is, he's gonna find her so they can both die together. A while later, they finally reach Roth, the castle town. Annette and Tama open up the coffin to let Osamu out. Osamu takes a look around the town, and he's damn sure now that he ain't in the same world no more. But before they do anything else, Annette suggests they head to the castle and have an audience with the king, but they end up leaving the coffin right in the middle of the road. At the castle, King Thomas and his daughter Charlotte are happy to meet them. And since they gotta be dead tired from a long-ass journey, the king offers them all a place to crash in the castle chambers for the night. But before that, he wants to hear some of Osamu's pleasant experiences. Osamu can't think of too many pleasant things to talk about, but he did enjoy that coffin ride gear, so he tells the king he's gonna show him what it's like to sleep in a coffin. Out of context, that might sound like a threat and all, but Annette quickly switches gears and compliments Charlotte on how fine she looks. The king mentions that Charlotte's actually getting married soon, so he's looking for some advice about her suitors. Thomas calls for the dudes to be brought in, and that's when we meet the warrior Gomes and the wandering minstrel of love Otto. Lately, because of the wrath of the demon lord's influence, monster activity's gone through the roof, but Thomas is too damn old to handle it himself, so he decides one of these two fellas is going to become Charlotte's husband and the next king of Roth. Problem is, Charlotte ain't too keen on the idea because she ain't picked a husband yet. That's why he's leaving the choice to a bunch of strangers he just met 10 damn minutes ago. He's making them choose between Gomes and Otto to marry Charlotte. But when the choice pops up, Osamu does the smart thing and says he's never met these dudes before. Charlotte's whole future depends on this decision, so it's stupid to trust a bunch of strangers with it. And if you do something like this without even thinking twice, then he ain't fit to be king. The king's left in shock, and after saying that, Osamu turns to bounce while Anna and Tama are frantically trying to apologize for Osamu's actions. They try to explain that Osamu's from another world, so he can be a bit blunt sometimes. But the king says it's cool because he ain't the type to hold a grudge, and it seems like Charlotte's taken a liking to him. Later that night, while everyone else is knocked out, Osamu spends his time gazing out the window. So Anna gets up and asks if he's having trouble falling asleep. Osamu tells her he just never sleeps well. Anna wants to seize the moment to learn more about Osamu, so she asks him to spill about Sakshin. But then she peeks a tail popping out from under Osamu's sheets, so she yanks off the covers and sees Tama snoozing on Osamu's thighs. She ain't having none of that shenanigans unless she's the one sleeping with Osamu, so she grabs a pillow and smacks Tama to wake her up. Tama defends herself, saying it's chilly and she's part cat, so it's totally normal for her to snuggle up to people for warmth. While Hannah and Tama keep going at it over this, Osamu gets up and dips out of the room because of all the ruckus. And as he steps into the hallway, he notices a dope-ass light. So he steps outside to peep the lake, and wouldn't you know it, Charlotte's chilling there too. When she spots Osamu, she invites him to vibe with her and enjoy the lake because it's a beautiful night. Osamu agrees, saying the place is so damn beautiful that it makes him feel like he wants to take a forever dive in the lake. Charlotte's shocked to hear him say that and asks if Osamu's got enough problems to make him one off himself. But from what Osamu's seen so far, Charlotte seems like way more trouble than him. After a bit of silence, Charlotte opens up to Osamu, spilling that she can't make up her damn mind about Gomes and Otto. Gomes just got to the castle, but he's already the most dependable soldier they got. And her dad believes in Gomes' strength, so she thinks she should probably go with him. But Otto has been her homie since they were kids, and whenever she felt down, he read her a song and play it to lift her spirits. She doesn't know if she should choose a hubby she loves or one who'd be the strongest king for her dad's sake. Osamu chuckles to himself and says Charlotte's hella kind for worrying about her dad's opinion this much, unlike Osamu, who's tried to cancel his subscription to Life multiple times, always causing problems for his family in the process. But he's never let someone else decide how he's gonna live his life. He thinks Charlotte should make a decision based on what she wants, and to do that, she gotta figure out her true desires. The next day, King Thomas summons Osamu and the crew back to the throne room. He apologizes for the inconvenience, but says he's calling them there because Charlotte's finally made up her mind about who she's gonna marry. He wants them to be witnesses to her choice. Annette is convinced Charlotte's gonna pick Gomes because she's likely to put the kingdom's needs before her own. Tama, on the other hand, thinks Otto's a way better match for her. Thomas tells Charlotte to walk up to the man she's chosen and speak her vows to him. So Charlotte starts walking, but instead of going to Otto or Gomes, she grabs Osamu's hand and says she wants to drown in the lake with him. Nobody can believe their ears, especially Annette, who collapses to the ground. Charlotte goes on to explain her reasons, saying that after talking with Osamu last night, she thought long and hard about who to choose, and that made her realize something. At first, she was leaning towards picking Otto because he always sang to her when she was feeling down. But now she remembers he'd sing to her even when she wasn't sad. He was even singing last night, and he never said he was in love with her. So he probably just wanted to perform his latest song for someone, and Charlotte happened to be there to listen. And as for Gomes, he's a no-go because he stinks something fierce. The king straight up be asking Charlotte to think again and choose a damn husband. But that's some crazy-ass shit to worry about because she already said she wanted to die with Osamu. Charlotte ain't taking none of that and snaps back at Thomas, telling him it was a dumbass move to force her into marrying someone without even asking for her opinion, like she never even wanted him married in the first place. Thomas never took a moment to consider her damn feelings, but Osamu, he actually gave a damn about what she thought and respected her decision. Now, Osamu is why Charlotte picked his ass, but before he can respond, Gomes takes off his helmet and says he never would have thought his cover would get blown because of his stench. Then he transforms to his true form as a servant of the Dark Lord and starts spilling that he planned to snatch up this kingdom by becoming its king and handing it over to the Dark Lord. But that shit's all ruined now that Charlotte saw through his disguise. Osamu looks at Charlotte and asks if she figured out Gomes was a freaking demon, but she ain't got a freaking clue. She just said he stank because he really does stink. That means Gomes blew his cover for no good reason, but he ain't ready to admit he messed up. Now that his cover's blown, he says he'll just kill them all. This is the kind of situation where a badass priestess would be hella useful, but she's still knocked the hell out. Tama tries to wake her up while Gomes is busy dealing with the guards. But damn, the guards ain't lasting long, so Tama has got to grab Annette's body and bounce to avoid getting squashed by a freaking pillar. Since Annette won't be waking up anytime soon, Tama takes matters into her own hands and starts throwing down with Gomes. She's level 14, so she should be able to hold her own in a fight. And since she'll go against him, Ada offers to play her a song because he's rocking at level 89. Normally, it would give her a boost, but turns out Otto's just playing his freshest track, and it ain't got no special effects, but Osamu seems to be liking that hood classic song. Tama ain't got no other choice but to start whooping ass on her own. As Gomes charges at her, Tama ducks and lands a kick straight to his face. She follows it up with a cat punch, but it doesn't do much damage to Gomes, so he sends Tama flying in return. He then says he's going to put everything into his next attack and tear Tama to shreds. But before he can do that, Osamu grabs his attention and asks Gomes to eliminate him and Charlotte first. Gomes thinks Osamu's playing around, but Osamu tells him that now that Charlotte's free from her dumbass father's grip, her first wish is to go out with a bang alongside Osamu. And Osamu ain't one to pass up a chance to die, so he asks Gomes to do him this favor. Gomes agrees to off him, but he says after that he's gonna take out the king and burn the whole damn city to the ground, taking out everyone in it. Osamu doesn't give a damn about what Gomes does because he'll be dead by then anyway, but Charlotte's starting to have second thoughts about biting the dust. As Gomes charges at them, she tells Osamu that she can't let herself die just yet because she wants to stay alive and protect the kingdom. Osamu's glad to hear that Charlotte finally knows what she really wants. Just when she wants to stay alive, he pushes her out of harm's way and takes the full brunt of the attack himself as Gomes keeps charging straight at Osamu. Charlotte tries to convince him not to get himself impaled, but luckily, right at that moment, Anna wakes up and uses her power to create a shield of light to protect Osamu from Gomes' strike. She's vowed to never let Osamu die as long as she's by his side. So as Gomes tries to break through her shield, he ends up shattering his damn horns in the process. Now that Gomes is defenseless, Tama lands a blow that sends him flying through the castle wall and into the freaking lake. Both Tama and Annette are relieved they made it through, and since Anna really came through for Tama, Tama feels the need to show her some appreciation. Annette also thanks Tama for her help, and the two of them seem to be getting along a whole lot better now. And Otto is still here, playing his heart out like he doesn't have a care in the world. Charlotte's got a lot to process after that crazy incident, but then her dad rushes up to her, begging for forgiveness for not giving a damn about her feelings before. Osamu was right about Thomas not being fit to be king, and now Thomas realizes he ain't even fit to be Charlotte's father. So he sincerely asks Charlotte if she's willing to forgive him. Charlotte gets down and tells her old man that she forgives him. And from now on, she wants to have a lot of talks with him about the future of this kingdom and their own selves. Thomas is mad happy that he made amends with Charlotte, and Charlotte's thrilled her pops finally gets where she's coming from. But all Osamu can think about is how Annette and Tama messed up his perfect chance for a game over. A while later, Thomas admits he ain't cut out to rule the kingdom, so he gives up the throne to Charlotte, who's now doing everything in her power to keep the kingdom safe. And Otto's still cooking up tunes because he ain't got nothing better to do. Meanwhile, Annette and Tama are busy hauling Osamu's coffin to their next stop, chatting about how bold it was for Charlotte to become queen at 16. But they're sure it's gonna work out somehow. Osamu pops out of the coffin and says what really matters is that Charlotte made the decision for herself and she's standing by it, and that's something Osamu finds beautiful. After dragging Osamu around for a long time, Tama asks Annette if they can chill because she's beat. They put some serious miles behind them, so Annette figures it's cool to take a breather. Once they stop, Osamu cracks open the coffin and wonders if it's food time yet. Annette offers him some bread, but this dude Osamu's all about that boiled tofu, so if she ain't got any, he's just gonna go back to sleep. After the break, Tama asks how much longer till they hit the house, and since Annette's holding the map, she says it looks like we got a few more days before they reach her hometown. But before that, Annette asks to make a stop at this Whiten temple. Tama ain't care about the delay, but she asks why Annette needs to go there, prompting her to start explaining the Isekai process. Usually, peeps from other worlds come into this realm through one of 4 temples and then head off to battle the Dark Lord. But since Osamu's mission is to find Sachin instead of taking down the Dark Lord, Annette wants to check out the temples to see if they can dig up any info on where Sachin's at. But if luck ain't on their side, they might have to globe-trot their way around. But Annette's all in, ready to ditch it all for Osamu. Real talk, she ain't want Osamu going toe-to-toe with the Dark Lord, even though it's her job to convince folks to do just that. She's just looking out for Osamu, not trying to see him in harm's way. Tama calls her out, saying she's smitten with Osamu. Annette denies any impure intentions, even if it's painfully obvious at this point. She claims Osamu breathed new life into her work when she was feeling burnt out, so now she's on a mission to help him find his missing person. That's all. Tama asks if that means Annette would be cool if she found out Sachin was actually Osamu's lover or something. Even though the thought hurts, Annette still wants to see it for herself. By the way, Tama was wondering if Annette can even roll into this Whiten temple since she dipped out on her job for this road trip. Annette ain't sweating it because she's tight with the head honcho at this Whiten temple, and it ain't like she coasted her work either. She had her familiars drop off her official resignation letter for her. And coincidentally, that same familiar is back and munching on Osamu's head. After patching up Osamu, Annette gripes about her sidekick always stirring up trouble. And now that she's vocalizing it, she's realizing it was a mistake letting that thing handle the delivery of her resignation letter. Her suspicions hit the bullseye when her familiar vomits her letter, making it seem like she coasted her work without a heads up, and she's pointing fingers straight at the familiar. Watching the familiar fail so hard at its one job lights up Osamu's face with a smile, seeing as he's a bit of a failure himself. So he names it Melos, and Melos takes an instant liking to Osamu. But Osamu ain't really in the market for a pet, so he just dips back into his coffin. Meanwhile, Annette's losing it over bailing on her job without notice, knowing the temple's gonna shut down her unemployment claim later. Right then, Melos starts acting sketchy and soon bolts, signaling something's off. But it ain't until a dragon swoops down from the peak that they connect the dots on what Melos was trying to warn them about. A dragon ranks as the baddest beast around, leaving Annette clueless on how to handle it. But before the dragon goes berserk, a chick pops up behind Annette and Tama, commanding Kohaden to stop attacking random people. The chick then strolls up to the dragon, giving it a pet, leaving Annette and Tama dumbfounded. They've never seen anyone tame a dragon, so they ask who she is. But she just turns to them, saying the area is crawling with monsters, warning them to leave before they get hurt, and seems like one of their crewmates already bit the dust. Annette apologizes for the mix-up and clarifies that Osamu's still kicking is just a quirky otherworlder who's into napping in a coffin. The moment the chick learns Osamu's not from around here, a switch flips in her head, tossing off her cloak to reveal she's a dragon girl, vowing to wipe out all the otherworlders. The sheer power radiating from her is off the charts, so when she zaps a blast their way, Annette barely manages to block it for a hot second with her shield. But her shield ain't cutting it as the blast still packs a punch. They're left scattered on the ground, realizing this dragon chick's power is on a whole another level. Still, they ain't backing down when it comes to protecting Osamu, so they rise up ready to throw hands once again. But this dragon girl ain't having none of their interference, so she brings down heavy pressure, forcing them back to the floor. While they're pinned, she stands over them, letting Annette peep the mark on her neck, a mark Annette knows as that of the wrathful Dark Lord. This Dark Lord's about to end Annette and Tama, but before she can do the deed, Osamu steps up, telling her to chill with the violence towards the others. He tells her she's got beef with folks from other worlds, and that means the one she's after is him. Osamu tells her she can do whatever she pleases to him, and since he ain't resisting, the Dark Lord agrees to leave the others be. In a split second, she punches right through Osamu's chest. As he hits the floor, this Dark Lord declares herself as Waldelia, telling Osamu to rest in peace forever. But as she's bouncing, Osamu gets back up, laughing at the fact she actually stabbed him. He can sense the hate in her because he once felt the same, even had thoughts of stabbing someone. Dude went as far as penning a threatening letter back in the day, so he knows how it feels to be consumed by hate. Waldelia is getting spooked now, but Osamu keeps pushing closer and touches her cheek, dropping that dying man charm. He says he's down to hear her story, but Waldelia ain't falling for his game that easy. She calls for her ride Kohaden to scoop her before things escalate. Once she dips, Osamu hits the ground again, because his chest wound is still wide open. But Melos ain't ghosting just yet, finally pulling his weight and hauling them to the temple. Isha sees Annette's messed up, rushing to her side. But Annette asks her to take care of Osamu first because he's in worse shape. Isha sees it's really bad, so she calls for every potion and priest available to help Osamu recover. The next day rolls around and Osamu's back on his feet, but he ain't cool with that. So the first move he pulls is snagging a bottle of poison to drink. While he's on that mission, Annette gives props to Isha for all her help and promises to return the favor down the line. Annette then drops a question about this otherworlder named Sachin to Isha, but Isha's drawing a blank on that name. Isha figures Sachin must be posted up at some other temple. More importantly, Isha asks Annette why she's suddenly rolling with an otherworlder. She was shocked when she heard Annette bailed on her work, but deep down she's low-key relieved because she knew Annette was too soft-hearted for that line of work. But Isha ain't down with Annette teaming up with an otherworlder because she's seen firsthand that most of them are just shady characters. These folks get divine gifts to take down the Dark Lord, but they all call their gifts as overpowered skills and use them for dumb shit like starting a failing rap career. One of these jokers is called Kotaro, and he was unfortunately given the power to destroy the world's economy by mass-producing gold coins like crazy. He tries to charm the girls by offering to buy them whatever they want in exchange for a good time, but Isha ain't having it. She tosses his gold right back to his face and tells him to bounce because she's in the middle of a serious chat. Kotaro was a headache, but he kind of proved his own point that otherworlders aren't good people. Annette tries to vouch for Osamu, claiming he's not cut from the same cloth as the rest of them, but Isha ain't buying it because Osamu's vibes scream trouble. Isha warns Annette that sticking by Osamu will lead to ruin, but Annette stands firm that Osamu ain't a bad influence because she's seen herself change for the better since linking up with him. But Annette's defense about Osamu being a positive force takes a hit when he rolls up asking for cash to score drugs, and she gladly hands him whatever he needs. Isha starts thinking Annette might be too deep in the mix if she's already this tied to Osamu. Isha's at least curious about Osamu's gift, but she's thrown for a loop when Annette spills that Osamu ain't got no gift at all. Even though he ain't got no gift, Osamu still put himself on the line to shield Annette and Tama from the Dark Lord. But this news hits Isha even harder because the Dark Lord supposedly bit the dust 7 days back at the hands of some Otherworlders. Next thing you know, we're peeping the throne all stained up from the former Dark Lord's blood, with the Otherworlder who took him out chilling on it. Meanwhile, Waldelia is lurking in the shadows, swearing to avenge her old man's death. Later on, Annette links up with Tama and drops the bomb that the Dark Lord got taken out a week back. Isha got wind of it from the church recently, and it's a dope deal because it means peace might finally be settling over Zauberberg. But if the Dark Lord's really dead, then who was trying to off him earlier? Annette ain't got the answer to that one. And now that Tama's thinking it over, didn't Osamu roll up 7 days ago too? If the Dark Lord was already done for by then, why'd they still bring Osamu into the mix? Right then, Osamu tears up his notes and falls on the floor, so Tama's checking in on what's wrong with him this time. He spills that he's been struggling to write all the craziness that's gone down since he touched down in this world. Annette asks if he wrote anything about her, but Osamu admits he didn't jot a single word about her. If anything, he felt a burst of inspiration after crossing paths with Waldelia, hoping for that same spark to ignite creativity again, but Tama says she's not going to do any dangerous shit with him. Annette suggests they all dip into town to unwind, and with her future with Osamu in mind, there's a few things she wants to snag for him. Once they hit the town, Annette scoops up a heavy set of armor for Osamu to keep him safe and sound. Osamu ain't tripping because the snub fit reminds him of his coffin. With Osamu locked in tight, Annette and Tama jet off to do some more shopping. So Annette warns Osamu to stay put while they're out. A while later, Yusha's walking through town when she spots a crew of kids gathered around a massive suit of armor, and she's shocked to find Osamu snugly sitting inside. Rushing off the curiosity about why he's rocking that heavy gear, Yusha drops the bomb that she's got something to chat with Osamu about. She lays it down that from here on out, Annette's leaving with her because she's convinced sticking with Osamu will only lead to misery. Yusha orders Osamu to cut ties with Annette immediately. But Osamu just flashes a smile and tells her that it's Annette's call whether she stays with him or not. Yusha can't make that call for her. Plus, how can Yusha be so certain Osamu's gonna bring Annette down when she knows any shit about him? And just because he's an Otherworlder, Yusha's jumping to conclusions that Annette's better off without him. Right then, Misha catches a weird sound, and as she goes to check it out, she catches Kotaro bringing in another Otherworlder called Suzuki to the scene. Suzuki spills to the crowd that the Dark Lord finally got taken down, so the whole crew starts cheering for the Otherworlders, who set them free from the Dark Lord's grip. But Suzuki corrects them because he ain't calling it freedom. It's more like they got a new boss in town. He declares that from now on, the Otherworlders are running the show, and he's taking charge of the town, so he demands everyone bow down to him. Just then, Kotaro spots Annette and calls her out for being one of the elves who smacked his face with coins. So Suzuki jumps up and starts barking at her for laying a hand on an Otherworlder, and he's making it crystal clear that she won't be pulling a stunt like that again. After placing his hand on Annette's head, Suzuki activates his skill, and within moments, Annette's eyes go dark as she falls completely under his control. Tama notices something seriously wrong, and realizing Suzuki has messed with Annette, she grabs Kotaro by the jacket and demands to know what happened. Kotaro just smirks and tells her there's nothing she can do now that Suzuki's skill is in play, and he breaks it down that anyone Suzuki touches becomes his mindless puppet. Tama is furious and threatens to beat Kotaro senselessly until he gets Suzuki to fix Annette, but before Tama can even lay a finger on Kotaro, Suzuki casually places his hand on her head and turns her into another obedient puppet. Things are getting way out of hand. Then Nisha finally shows up, furious at Suzuki for abusing his powers. She taught him to use his abilities for good, not to enslave people. Suzuki, however, couldn't care less about Isha's disapproval because he's the one holding all the cards now. Since Isha and the townsfolk are trying to oppose him, he decides to completely wreck the town to make an example out of it. He plans to rebuild it as a fortress where no one will dare challenge him again. Before he leaves, he informs Isha that he'll be taking over her church and turning it into his new castle. Under Suzuki's orders, his attack dogs go wild, demolishing the town. Even Tama, now under Suzuki's control, joins in the destruction, taking her anger out on the suit of armor that Osamu had been stuffed into earlier. Osamu, however, isn't even bothered by Tama's rampage. He actually finds it pretty hilarious that Annette was right about the armor being a good idea for emergencies like this. Eventually, Tama's relentless punches crack the armor open, But in the chaos, she ends up launching the helmet right into her own face, knocking her out cold instantly. Osamu is now free from the armor, and with Tama out cold on the ground, he does the only thing he can think of. He stuffs her into a barrel to make sure she doesn't cause any more trouble. After sorting that out, Yisha comes crashing into the building next to him. For once, she's actually relieved to see Osamu's face, but she still sticks to her earlier statements about Suzuki being a prime example of what otherworlders are like. Suzuki didn't just use his gift for his own selfish desires, as greed has made him a real danger to society. It's clear that the power from his gift must have gone straight to his head, because he wasn't like this when he first showed up in this world. Back then, he was a shy, weak-willed guy, but now he's turned into a full-blown monster. Hearing Yisha talk about Suzuki's fall from grace sparks a new fire in Osamu. He asks Yisha where Suzuki is, and she tells him Suzuki should be at the church, so Osamu asks Yisha to keep an eye on Tama while he goes to confront Suzuki. Yisha warns him that it's insane to go after a hero without a gift of his own, but Osamu insists, saying he wants to write about Suzuki's story. Seeing how determined he is, Yisha agrees to go with him to keep him safe. When they reach the church doors, Osamu is pumped, but Yisha can't understand how he's so chill in this situation. He's seen what Suzuki's gift can do, so he should know he's at a serious disadvantage in a straight-up fight. If he barges in without a plan, she tells him he'll be shredded by Suzuki's beasts. But before she can say more, Osamu pulls out a bottle of poison from his sleeve. Yisha is impressed, thinking Osamu plans to use the poison on the beasts, but to her shock, he chums the whole bottle in one go. With the poison out of the picture, Yisha gets down on all fours, saying they'll have to use the back door. But Osamu ignores her and heads straight through the front door. Osamu greets Suzuki and tells him he's interested in writing a novel about his story. Suzuki, thinking Osamu is a fan wanting to document his heroic deeds, is pleased. But Osamu drops the bombshell that the novel he wants to write is about a loser who was given way more power than he deserved and ended up becoming a total jerk. Suzuki's feeling massively disrespected, so he orders his pack of dogs to tear Osamu apart. Osamu's just standing there like he's on vacation, so Yisha jumps in to defend him. She casts a spell that sends lasers right into the dogs' heads, but she's getting overwhelmed, and Suzuki's remaining beasts start launching fireballs at Osamu. With Yisha out of commission, it's looking like Osamu is about to have a very bad day. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, the fireballs get deflected by a floating helmet and fly right back at Suzuki. Turns out, Melos is using the helmet to deflect the fireballs, because the armor's got this nifty trick of bouncing off low-level spells. Kotaro's freaking out, realizing that Osamu's got some serious plot armor going on. But Suzuki's not sweating it, he's got one last trick up his sleeve. Suzuki orders his great wolf to attack Osamu. As the wolf bites into him, it starts to decay and collapses. Yisha's in disbelief that the poison Osamu drank actually saved them, and Kotaro is now 100% convinced that Suzuki can't beat Osamu's plot armor, so he takes his potato-like head and runs away. Suzuki grudgingly admits that Osamu's tougher than he thought. But he's not done yet. He calls out Annette to come out and finish the job. Annette, under Suzuki's control, charges at Yisha with a dagger and nearly stabs her. Yisha, not wanting to fight Annette, figures it's best to retreat for now. But Osamu's not having any of that. He believes Annette's strong enough to shake off the mind control. Suzuki laughs, saying his mind control is unbeatable, and that Annette's doomed to be his slave for life. Still, Osamu is confident Annette can overcome it. He walks right up to her and tells her she doesn't have to obey Suzuki's orders. It seems Osamu's words are getting through because Annette starts hesitating, trying to resist stabbing him. Suzuki's fuming, using all his power to force her hand, but Annette, through sheer willpower and a flashback, manages to break free of the brainwashing by stabbing herself in the leg. The pain snaps her out of it, and she collapses into Osamu's arms. With Annette back to her old self, Osamu asks Yisha to treat her leg wound. Yisha starts to realize she might have misjudged Osamu as a person. Suzuki's realizing his ability isn't all-powerful anymore, and he's starting to sweat, knowing he's going to be held accountable for all his war crimes. He's freaking out, knowing he's about to get served some serious justice from all the people he's messed with. He's looking around, desperate for a knife to end it all. But just as he's about to give himself to the afterlife, Osamu swoops in to stop him. Not because he gives a damn about Suzuki's life, but because he's not done with his story yet. He wants Suzuki to spill everything about his past life, so with nothing left to lose, Suzuki starts pouring out his backstory. Suzuki was just your average high school kid, constantly bullied by the bigger guys. He was super timid and weak and never stood up for himself. He even thought about jumping off a roof to escape his bullies, but chickened out in the end. One day, a drunk old man bumped into him and started shouting like it was Suzuki's fault. Suzuki was pissed but still didn't have the guts to fight back, so he was basically a walking target for truck porn. Next thing he knows, he's yanked into this world and greeted by Yisha as the so-called hero, supposed to take down the demon lord. From there, he was left to fend for himself, grinding his way through battles with wolves and eventually turning them into his loyal minions. With his new crew, he took down some heavy-duty monsters. He thought things were finally looking up for him. But as he walked through the town, he realized that even with all this new power, people still treated him like a nobody, just like back on Earth. The thought of getting bullied again pushed him to his breaking point. He'd suffered endless torment on Earth, and now he's being hailed as a hero here. But he had no real motivation to save this new world or play the hero role. Even when he tried to act like a villain, he couldn't pull it off. Osamu's digging Suzuki's story because it wraps up his novel nicely. It's about a pitiful guy who could never be a true hero, stuck as a villain due to his own weakness, outcast no matter where he goes. So Osamu decides to call the novel Isekai Shikaku. As he names it, pages from the novel start floating around Suzuki, making it all kinds of surreal. Then Osamu thanks Suzuki for the story, saying it helped him finally write something he's actually cool with. But he's still not calling it a masterpiece, so he grabs a page from the novel and rips it to shreds. As he does this, a magic circle pops up beneath Suzuki. Yusha and Annette recognize it as the summoning circle they used to bring heroes to this world. But this time it's working in reverse. In a flash of light, Suzuki is sent back to Earth. Annette checks Osamu's status screen, and to her shock, sees he now has a gift that wasn't there before. Yusha figures it must be some special skill that only works against otherworlders. This means Osamu was brought here specifically to deal with otherworlders. After Suzuki vanishes, Osamu collapses, bummed that he couldn't create the masterpiece he was aiming for. He's completely unaware of the power his writing has, and he starts wondering what happened to Suzuki. With Suzuki gone, all the monsters under his control chill out and start leaving the town. Tama finally gets herself out of the barrel, but she's scratching her head, not even sure why she was in there in the first place. With everything going back to normal, Yusha figures Osamu deserves a reward for saving the town from Suzuki. So at his request, she has a customized coffin made for him. Annette thanks Yusha for all her help, but before she heads out, Yusha wants to have a serious talk with her. She says it's likely Osamu is a huge hero in this world, which means traveling with him is gonna be insanely dangerous. But Yusha's seen Annette's willpower and thinks she can handle whatever comes her way, so she asks Annette to back up Osamu as best as she can. After that, the group is set to continue their journey, with Tama and Annette grabbing the ropes to haul Osamu's coffin. Before they leave, Yusha has one more question for Osamu. She's been mulling over Suzuki's downfall. Suzuki was a decent guy before he got his powers and came to this world, so Yusha wonders if he turned bad just because he was summoned. Osamu's got a different take. He says while Suzuki's story as a hero here is done, his story back on Earth is still in play. It's up to him to turn things around and make a difference. And then we see Suzuki on Earth after he got a job and decided to change his life for the better. After Osamu and the gang left, Yusha rolled up to the church headquarters to fill them in on what happened. When she arrives, she spots her co-worker, Wolf, sitting around and drinking away his problems. She's pretty shocked he's already hitting the bottle in the morning, but Wolf shrugged it off, saying his job was way more stressful than hers. While Yusha deals with people like herself, Wolf has to handle dwarves, and according to him, dwarves smell absolutely awful. Just as Wolf is about to keep bragging on dwarves, Elton walks in and calls him out. He says it's not cool for Wolf to be spewing racist crap while he's on the clock, especially since he's a bishop. Wolf gives a half-hearted apology but throws some shade at Elton for being a goblin bishop, considering most bishops are elves. Elton isn't fazed and tells Wolf he's acting worse than the dwarves he hates so much. This really sets Wolf off, and he dares Elton to handle dwarves all day and see if he doesn't become a racist too. Right then, Cardinal Miller shows up and tells them to cut the crap and sit down so they can get the meeting going. When the meeting starts, Miller apologizes for dragging everyone here on short notice. He wants to kick things off with updates from each region, but notices someone's missing. Before he can say much more, the missing bishop stumbles in and falls in front of everyone. They're all clueless about who this new person is, so Miller introduces her as the new bishop of the Western Temple, taking over after Annette bailed on her job. They all take their seats around the big conference table, and Cardinal Miller kicks things off, asking the bishops to start with their reports. First up is Aria, who's filling in for Annette. She introduces herself and says not much has happened in her region recently, but Miller chimes in, mentioning that he heard Princess Charlotte recently took over the throne, which is pretty significant. Aria scrambles to apologize for forgetting that detail, clearly worried about making a bad impression. But Elton the Goblin Bishop interrupts and starts giving his update. He reports that things in his region have been peaceful lately, and there's not much to add. Everything's been calm, so he doesn't have any major news. Wolf goes next and talks about his territory, which is way out in the sticks. He explains that while his region is generally stable, there are occasional squabbles with the dwarves, but he assures everyone that these conflicts are pretty normal and nothing to be overly concerned about. When Nisha takes her turn, she brings some serious news. An otherworlder recently went on a rampage in her region and wrecked half of the town of Vale. She's working hard to get the town back to normal, but that's not even the biggest issue. The main reason Miller called this meeting is to address the situation with the Otherworlders. As he mentioned last week, a group of Otherworlders took down the wrathful Dark Lord. Because of this, the Pope has decided to seal the magic circles that link their world to the others and put Truck Kuan on indefinite paid leave. Elton is relieved that the Dark Lord is out of the picture, but is still worried. The 7 Otherworlders who defeated him have claimed his former territory and announced they're going to turn Zauberberg into their idea of a perfect utopia. This whole situation is shaping up to be nothing short of a declaration of war, and it's got the Pope seriously shaken. The Otherworlders were initially seen as divine saviors, angels sent from above to rescue this world from doom. The Pope had a genuine affection for them and saw them as key allies. But now it seems they've turned against him, which is a huge blow. The Church is bracing itself for an imminent threat, and it's not just the Otherworlders they have to worry about. There's also the chaos they've been spreading across various regions and the mysterious disappearance of the Dark Lord's daughter from his fortress. It's hard to believe that the Otherworlders, who were once the Church's greatest allies, are now its biggest adversaries. If they join forces, they could end up being a far greater threat than the Dark Lord ever was. Arya is understandably anxious about how they'll tackle such formidable opponents. However, Isha might have a potential solution, and she reveals to the group that there's an Otherworlder with a unique ability, one that allows him to send Otherworlders back to their own world. This revelation shocks everyone, but if Isha's theory holds water, then Osamu's gift might just be the key to sending these invaders back where they came from. Just as they're digesting this news, the Pope makes a surprise appearance. His arrival catches everyone off guard, but he's visibly relieved to hear about this potential solution. He asks Isha to provide more details about this person with a remarkable ability. Meanwhile, within the Dark Lord's former domain, 2 of the 7 Otherworlders who helped defeat him are staying behind in the castle. The remaining 5 have dispersed to different regions, each intent on claiming new territories for their emerging empire, and the 2 left behind are eagerly watching to see how things will unfold. Back with Osamu and the others, they finally reach their destination. Tama is thrilled at the prospect of a good night's sleep in a real bed, but then she gets a system notification. Thanks to all the coughing and hauling she's been doing, her level has jumped to 17. Leveling up is usually great news, but Tama's less than thrilled about how it came about. Then Annette decides they should start by finding an inn for the night, but then a voice pipes up saying there's a good spot down the road. Annette looks up and sees a little kid perched on a signpost. He offers to give her some tips on navigating the town since she's new here. The kid spills that there's a hero dispatch service in town where Otherworlders team up with groups that aren't so confident in their skills. They basically make sure the mission goes smoothly and everyone stays safe. The kid says he came up with the idea himself, but as soon as he mentions Otherworlders, Tama's face goes pale. She's got flashbacks of what Kotaro and Suzuki pulled, so she's not interested at all. The kid's confused why Tama hates Otherworlders so much, especially since they're the ones who saved the world. But he moves on and offers to introduce them to an Otherworlders right away, but for a small fee, of course. He asks for 40,000 Geniko for the intro, but Tama's not having it since she doesn't want to spend that much money. Annette, on the other hand, is all about spending that cash if it means getting a strong hero to keep Osamu safe. The kid thinks she's talking about guarding a coffin, so he starts going off about how the dead guy would probably appreciate having his body protected. Just then, Osamu pops out of the coffin and tells the kid he's not dead yet, though he kinda wishes he were. The kid freaks out, but Tama reassures him that despite how he looks, Osamu is also a hero. The kid's not convinced though, and he snatches the money from Annette and says he'll bring the hero to their inn later tonight. Tama is still skeptical, but she admits having a strong hero on their team would be great since she wouldn't have to lug the coffin around anymore, but Annette, on the other hand, actually enjoys pulling the coffin. Later that night, Annette and the others are hanging out at the inn, waiting for Nurm to show up like he promised. But then Osamu tells Annette straight up that the kid isn't coming, and that she's been scammed. The innkeeper overhears and asks if they're waiting for a kid named Nurm. When Annette confirms, the innkeeper breaks it to them that Nurm is known around town as a young con artist. He's never even met a hero, so there's no way he could introduce Annette to one like he claimed. Annette's devastated about losing 40,000 Geniko, and Tama tries to calm her down. Osamu's curious about Nurm, so the innkeeper explains that Nurm is an orphan who just showed up in town one day and has been scamming unsuspecting travelers ever since. He's a pain for the town, but sometimes the innkeeper feels sorry for him since he's on his own with no one to set him straight. Meanwhile, Nurm is chilling under a bridge staring at the pile of cash he's scammed, but suddenly he gets grabbed by some unknown kidnappers. They drag him to an abandoned shed and start rummaging for his stash of ill-gotten gains. Nurm asks them what they plan to do with him, and the 3 guys have some seriously sketchy vibes going on. Nern tries to bluff his way out, claiming his hero buddy will get revenge if they hurt him. The guys aren't buying it though. They know Nern's never met a hero, and as a matter of fact, they're heroes themselves. One of them has this crazy gift that lets him summon a powerful crossbow. Since Nern's been using the hero name to scam people, this otherworlder decides he's going to punish him with an arrow to the head. Nern is stunned that the heroes he looked up to are actually scumbags, but he comes to terms with it and braces for his end. Just as the bowman is about to shoot, Osamu shows up, pushes the guy's hand, and redirects the arrow right into the knee of the metal guy standing next to him. Osamu confronts the villains, telling them they have no right to call themselves heroes when they act so despicably. His words, however, fall on deaf ears as one of the villains with glowing eyes uses his skill to analyze Osamu. To everyone's shock, he discovers that Osamu is an otherworlder as well. This revelation puts everyone on edge as they are unsure of Osamu's powers. Upon closer inspection, the appraiser realizes that Osamu is critically injured, with only 1 point of HP remaining and currently poisoned. This discovery initially calms the bowman, who now believes he can easily defeat Osamu. But as soon as Osamu hears the bowman's threat to end him, his interest is piqued and he strides purposefully towards them. The appraiser starts to panic as Osamu's health stats begin to rise rapidly, and Osamu taunts the bowman to shoot him straight in the heart. Believing this to be a trap, the bowman decides to retreat, fleeing with his companions. As the villains make their escape, Osamu is left feeling disheartened because he had hoped they would finish him off. Nern, witnessing the confrontation, asks Osamu if he is a hero. Osamu dismisses the notion, saying he's far from noble. Instead, he describes himself as just a man trying to navigate the harsh world of adults. He encourages Nern to preserve his innocence a bit longer before he too becomes as corrupted as those otherworlders he despises. Inspired by Osamu's words, Nern feels a sense of hope, but this quickly turns to panic when he realizes that Osamu has left him tied up and is now out of sight, meaning he'll be stuck here all night. The following morning, as Osamu and the others prepare to leave town and continue their journey, Tama notices Osamu's drowsy demeanor and asks if he managed to sleep well. Annette, recalling that Osamu had slipped away the previous night without saying where he was going, questions him about whether he spent the night with someone. Osamu only remarks that he had an eventful night, leading Annette to worry that another woman might have been involved, causing her to sob over the potential loss of Osamu's affections to someone else. Their discussion is interrupted by Nern, who insists they need to hurry up and get moving. Tama then recognizes him and immediately demands that he return the money they paid him for the false promise of introducing a hero. Nern insists he did not lie, claiming that he is indeed the hero he promised, although he admits he isn't particularly strong. The scene shifts to the group on their journey, where Osamu suddenly hears an announcement in his head that he's discovered a landmark called Grun Castle. The voice makes him want to crawl into a hole and die, and Nern notices his distress and he's a bit concerned. Nern mentions it to the others, but they brush it off. This sort of thing has become all too common. Tama then casually asks Nern to take her place driving the coffin. Nern isn't thrilled, but he steps in anyway, and soon the city of Grun comes into view. As they approach the gates, they spot an inspection checkpoint. Tama confidently assures them she can get them through, claiming she's somewhat of a local celebrity. But as soon as the guards recognize her, they surround the group and promptly arrest them. The scene cuts to them in a dank dungeon, where Annette is praying to God for deliverance, but it's clear that divine intervention isn't coming. Nern mentions that the guards have taken Tama to another cell and starts speculating that they might be in this mess because of her. He even wonders if Tama had the guts to steal from royalty or commit some other heinous crime. Annette, loyal as ever, defends Tama, insisting she's no thieving cat. Meanwhile, Osamu, in his twisted way, is getting excited about the possibility of execution, pondering all the different ways they might be put to death. Nern tries to stay practical and suggests they escape, even if it means leaving Tama behind. He begins picking the lock, much to Annette's dismay, who believes a valiant warrior shouldn't be skilled in such dubious arts. This depresses Nern, while Osamu angrily laments that his dreams of a grand execution are being dashed. All the noise they're making attracts the guards, who quickly discover their escape attempt and bind them with ropes. Osamu, still weirdly optimistic, asks if they're going to be executed, and the guards can't help but think he's a total creep for actually being happy about it. Later, Osamu and the others are brought before King Siberian. The minister Briard informs them they'll be executed for their crimes. Annette and Nern are baffled, having no idea what crimes they're being accused of. The king then reveals that they're being sentenced for kidnapping his daughter Matilda, and it's a crime worthy of execution in his eyes. Tama then strides into the throne room and immediately clears the air, telling her father that she wasn't kidnapped. The twist is that she's actually the princess of this nation, and Tama explains that she's been traveling to different countries to hone her martial arts skills, and that she met the group during her journey. She then turns to Annette, asking her to back up her story. Realizing that Tama is royalty, Annette quickly switches gears, sucking up to her and speaking in a formal tone, confirming everything Tama said. Tama, though, tells her to chill and not to treat her any differently, and then asks her father to release her friends. The king, however, isn't budging that easily and says that he'll only let them go if she agrees to do as he says. Specifically, he wants her to swear to stop her reckless adventures and start acting like the royal she is, just like her late mother. Tama isn't thrilled with this at all, but considering her friend's safety, she reluctantly agrees to her father's terms. She tells her friends that this is where their journey together ends and leaves, thanking them for everything. Osamu and the others are then released, and we catch up with them later at a tavern. Nerm is devouring food like there's no tomorrow, while Osamu, still hung up on missing out on his grand execution fantasy, swallows a bunch of poison pills in a depressed daze. Nerm remarks on how shocked he was to learn that Tama is actually a princess, and Annette agrees. She's worried now, realizing she might have been a bit too casual with Tama and hopes she won't get executed for it. Annette muses about how they've been calling her Tama despite her having a beautiful name like Matilda. Overhearing this, a waitress named Fawn chimes in, asking if they know Princess Matilda. She introduces herself as the lady-in-waiting who used to serve the princess and is curious if they're friends with her. Nerm casually informs Fawn that they were traveling with Matilda up until yesterday when the king hauled her back to the castle. He shrugs, saying it's understandable since she's well a princess after all. Osamu senses there's more to Tama's life than meets the eye, and he's curious to learn more. He wonders aloud if Fawn can shed some light on Tama's story. He mentions that when he first met Tama, she was trapped by a tree monster, and now she's been confined to the castle by her father. He finds her intriguing, despite her royal status. Annette quickly warns him not to dig into Tama's past, reminding him that she's a princess, while Nerm advises him to stop calling her Tama so casually. But Osamu doesn't care about her title. To him, she'll always be Tama. Hearing his genuine sentiment, Fawn agrees to share Matilda's past. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, Tama reflects on the surprise on Nerm and Annette's faces when they discovered she was a princess. She notes that Osamu, in contrast, remained his usual self, and she wonders what they're up to now. Just then, she notices a man standing on the roof of the throne room, and suddenly, the roof collapses. The king rushes to see what's happening and finds a man casually sitting on his throne. The man expresses excitement at the thought of tasting demi-woman flesh. The king demands to know who he is, and the man introduces himself as Kaibara, claiming to be one of the 7 heroes who defeated the Dark Lord and saved the world. However, he now goes by the title Fallen Angel of Gluttony, and the king realizes with horror that Kaibara is one of the infamous 7 fallen angels. The king is shocked and wonders why Kaibara has come here. Kaibara calmly explains that he intends to devour the entire nation. Sensing Kaibara's overwhelming power, the king realizes that he is gifted. The soldiers accompanying the king refuse to let Kaibara have his way and charge at him. But Kaibara, using his gift, summons enormous fangs that devour the soldiers. He chews them thoroughly, but he's unimpressed by their taste, explaining that he's rather particular about what he eats. He then tells the king that he has a preference for the flesh of women, especially the tender meat of a demi-woman. The remaining soldiers are visibly angered by Kaibara's arrogant demeanor, but the king orders them to hold back, and Briard realizes that the king himself is preparing to fight. The king declares that Kaibara won't leave the throne room alive and readies himself for battle. Kaibara is thrilled at the prospect of facing a warrior king and tries to devour him with his monstrous fangs. However, the king skillfully fights off the attack and strikes back with a powerful thunder-based martial arts technique. But to the king's shock, the attack has no effect. Kaibara laughs, explaining that while such a blow would have killed a normal person, his body is currently as tough as steel since he recently devoured a bunch of golems. Unfazed, the king begins to prepare his ultimate technique. Seeing this, Briard realizes that the king intends to eliminate Kaibara rather than capture him. The king confirms this, stating that a bastard like Kaibara doesn't deserve mercy after slaughtering his men, so he vows to destroy him with a single decisive strike. But just as he's about to unleash his attack, Matilda enters the room. Kaibara's eyes light up with twisted excitement as he finally lays eyes on a beautiful demi-woman, and Matilda's heart sinks in terror as she recognizes him as the monster she had sensed before. Determined to fight, she tears her skirt to prepare herself for battle, but her father sternly orders her to stay back, telling her that she can never replace Leon. Back at the tavern, Fawn reveals that Matilda once had a twin brother named Leon, who was the crown prince destined to inherit the throne. With Matilda's kindness and Leon's valor, everyone believed that their nation was headed for a long era of peace. But 10 years ago, tragedy struck when a storm caused a cave-in, killing Prince Leon and the queen on their way back to the castle. The king was devastated by their deaths and fell into a deep depression. Matilda was unable to bear seeing her father so broken, so she made a bold decision. She asked to have her hair cut to look like Leon's and vowed to take her brother's place, hoping to ease her father's pain. But instead of bringing them closer together, this act only deepened the rift between them. Back at the castle, the king tries to warn his daughter that her martial arts skills won't be enough to defeat Kaibara, but Matilda is offended and recklessly charges at him. Kaibara is almost amused and nearly devours her with his twisted gift, but the king intervenes, sacrificing his right arm to save her. Kaibara, curious about the depth of parental love, expresses disappointment, noting that the king won't be able to unleash his ultimate technique with his arm in such a state. To taunt them further, he shows Matilda her father's severed arm in his mouth, enraging her. She attempts another attack, but Briard steps in, knocking her unconscious and swiftly fleeing with her. Frustrated that his meal has escaped, Kaibara decides to save her for later, shifting his focus back to how he should enjoy the king. Meanwhile, back at the tavern, Annette thanks Fawn for sharing Tama's story. Nurm asks Osamu what he's been scribbling, but before he can answer, Briard bursts in, relieved to see Fawn. Carrying the unconscious Matilda, he reassures them that she's only fainted and explains that they barely escaped with their lives. The castle of Grun has fallen to an evil otherworlder who appeared out of nowhere. Suddenly, a loud blast echoes from the direction of the castle, and the citizens of Grun witness their captured cane display for all to see. Kaibara, now standing before them, introduces himself as their new ruler. With a twisted smile, he assures them that there's no need to worry, promising not to oppress them. Instead, he reveals his true horrifying intentions. He only wants to feast on the flesh of demi-humans, specifically targeting women and children. The men, he says, can continue working as usual. One brave soul hurls a rock at Kaibara, but he's swiftly consumed by the monster. Kaibara, feigning surprise, admits that perhaps it was misleading to claim he wouldn't eat men. Now that they've angered him, he declares that the men will be on the menu too. As panic spreads and the demi-humans attempt to flee, Kaibara coldly informs them that it's pointless. He's already stationed Dark Lord's former minions throughout the town to prevent any escape. With a chilling laugh, he promises to see them all at the dinner table before retreating back into the castle. Osamu is totally hyped by this unexpected twist, thinking Tama is the ultimate tragic heroine. First, she was held captive by her own father, and now she's the princess of a fallen nation. But he knows Tama isn't the type to just roll over and accept this fate. He urges her to wake up and take control, to show him how her story really plays out. In the meantime, we see Tama dreaming of her mother, who tells her something important to always remember. Tama wakes up suddenly and realizes she's in Fawn's house. She steps outside, surprised to see her friends there, and asks what's going on. Briard breaks the news that Kaibara has taken over the royal capital and is literally trying to eat the citizens. Tama is so furious now and tries to bolt for the castle, but Briard holds her back. She insists she needs to stop Kaibara, but Fawn also steps in, warning her that she doesn't stand a chance, especially since even the king was defeated. Tama is still fired up, points out that her father lost because he was trying to protect her. She feels it's her responsibility to protect the nation in place of her late brother. She's adamant this is her fight, but Annette jumps in, mentioning the tragedy of Aklolan Pass. Fawn's earlier story made her recall the event that claimed the lives of 2 royal family members a decade ago. Annette admits she had no idea that those lost were Tama's mother and brother, but she remembers how the entire country mourned their deaths. Annette continues, saying that this shows just how much the royalty is loved by the people. If it were to lose Tama too, all hope would be lost. She asks Tama to let them handle this fight, hinting that they have a secret weapon for dealing with otherworlders. Osamu then rallies Annette, Nurm, and Melos, telling them it's time to move. As the 4 head off to the castle, Briard looks at Matilda and says she's got some really good friends. The scene cuts to Osamu and the crew of the castle, where they run into 2 ogres guarding the gate. The ogres casually mention that they've been ordered to kill anyone who crosses their path. Annette steps up, ready to fight them solo, but Osamu interrupts, stepping forward with a wild idea. He calmly tells the ogres that they're not here to fight, they are here to be eaten. Osamu explains that he was deeply inspired by the king's speech earlier, revealing that he's always been obsessed with thoughts of death and how he might go out. But it never crossed his mind to be eaten alive, and now he's all in. He even asked the ogres to let the king know that someone eager to be eaten has arrived at the castle. The ogres, baffled, exchange looks, probably thinking Osamu is some kind of deranged freak. Meanwhile, Osamu grows impatient, annoyed that they're delaying his grand exit. Fast forward, and Osamu and the others find themselves locked in a cell yet again. Annette is desperate and prays for divine intervention, but when nothing happens, she begins to lose faith. Osamu is surprisingly calm and tells her to chill out. Death is just part of the plan, but now isn't his time to go. He turns to Nurm, instructing him to pick the lock. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Briard bringing some soup to Tama back in town, only to find her room empty. Back at the castle, Kaibara is flipping through a register, deciding who to eat first. Then the gatekeeper ogres arrive, informing him about the strange human who actually wants to be eaten. Just then, Tama bursts in after having dealt with the gatekeepers, and Kaibara grins with satisfaction. His meal has come to him willingly. Tama suddenly recalls her childhood, sitting on a tree branch watching as her father trained her brother Leon in the art of fighting. Leah, despite being naturally gentle and hating the very idea of violence, was pushed into learning how to fight. Tama, on the other hand, was a fiery tomboy, burning with the desire to learn those very same skills. But every time she asked to join in, her father would shut her down, telling her to get back to the kitchen with her mother, as if that's where she belonged. Stepping back to the present, Tama swore to herself that today she'd prove her strength to everyone, while Kaibara grinned from ear to ear, thrilled to see her, knowing she walked right into his trap the moment he used her father as bait. Rising from his throne, he taunts her, stating he loves to play with his food, and kicks a demon lying at his feet straight at Tama. She barely dodges the body, horrified at the sheer power behind his attack. But it was all just a distraction. In a flash, Kaibara closes the distance and unleashes a brutal electric attack on Tama, sending her crashing into the wall. She's stunned because this was her father's ability, so Kaibara starts laughing like the sadistic monster he is, revealing that his secret ability is gluttony, which lets him use anyone's powers after tasting them. And now, he plans to tear her apart using her father's skills before eating her alive. Meanwhile, Osamu and his party manage to escape the prison and navigate the winding halls of the palace. Annette asks if Osamu has a plan, but instead of heading straight for the throne room, he leads them into a different chamber, one that belonged to the queen when she was alive. He makes a beeline for the dresser and tries to open the drawers, only to find them locked. Nurm, frustrated, urges him to stop wasting time and focus on saving Tama. But Osamu, ever the charmer, flatters Nurm, saying that the team once again needs the services of the valiant warrior. Nurm, now in high spirits, eagerly opens the dresser, revealing a hidden book inside. Back in the throne room, Tama struggles to stay on her feet under Kaibara's relentless assault. He's too fast, too strong, appearing behind her in an instant and delivering a brutal kick that sends her flying. And before she can even react, he's above her, driving her into the ground with a bone-crushing elbow. He laughs, mocking her, telling her that her martial arts are nothing but trash and that she'll never be able to defeat him. But as Tama lies there, battered and bruised, she remembers her brother Leon, how he trained tirelessly, never giving up even though he hated fighting. Summoning every ounce of strength, she forces herself to stand again, despite her father's desperate pleas for her to retreat, knowing the gap in their power is too vast. Kaibara, on the other hand, is practically drooling with excitement. Her resilience only makes him more eager to taste her flesh. His twisted mind flashes back to his previous life, where he was a spoiled brat, born into a world of unimaginable wealth. His parents indulged his every whim, showering him with 5-star meals and luxuries, but none of it filled the gaping void inside him. He grew up a sociopath, numb to everything, craving something, anything, to make him feel alive. So one day he snapped, attacking a maid with a fork just to see what it felt like. His bodyguards had to drag him off her, but thanks to his rich parents, he faced no consequences. His life continued, empty and pointless, as he wandered the city in his Speedo, beating homeless people for sport, thinking they should just build a home if they didn't have one. Luckily for the world, Truck-kun did everyone a favor and sent this psycho to another world. But even here, Kaibara remained a complete maniac. He laughs maniacally, declaring that he'll devour this entire kingdom until there's no one left to consume. He lunges at Tama, jaws wide open, ready to tear into her, but suddenly, his jaws freeze in place and we see Osamu standing in front of Tama. Kaibara eyes Osamu with a mix of confusion and disdain, wondering who this strange-looking man could be. Osamu then casually insults him, saying Kaibara's story is even worse than Shadowhunter's, a low blow that clearly gets under Kaibara's skin. Kaibara gets ticked off by this and tries to snap at Osamu with his jaws, but to his shock, he finds his jaws unable to move. Confusion washes over Kaibara as he starts wondering why his instincts are screaming at him to back off from this guy. Just then, Annette and Nurm show up, backing up Osamu and declaring that he's here to dish out some divine punishment. They tell Osamu to write a story about Kaibara and send him packing back to his original world. But Osamu, being the absolute legend that he is, flat out refuses. He dismisses Kaibara as a waste of ink, saying his story is so pathetic, it doesn't even deserve to be written. This sends Kaibara into a full-blown rage, and he unleashes his lightning strike, blasting everyone away and vowing to kill them all before feasting on the princess. Meanwhile, Tama is struggling to get back on her feet, guilt-ridden and blaming herself for the injuries her friends have sustained. But Osamu, cool as ever, doesn't even flinch. He hands Tama a stack of pages, telling her that this story is dedicated to her. As she grabs the book and flips through the pages, they begin to glow and lift into the air, swirling around her like a protective aura. Kaibara is still fuming and tries to zap Nurm with another thunderblast. But Annette steps in, blocking the attack with her shield, questioning whether Osamu's abilities work on ordinary people too. Osamu then turns to Tama, praising her resilience and kindness, acknowledging how she was willing to sacrifice herself for the happiness of her friends. He explains that her attempts to take on her brother's role and help her father move on from his death were noble but ultimately unrecognized. Osamu tells her that she has two choices. She can either become the ideal princess her father wanted or step into her brother's shoes as the prince, but that he drops the real wisdom bomb, telling Tama that her path is her own, shaped by her unique experiences. He urges her to live the life she wants, and with those words, the chains that had held her back for so long finally shatter, and for the first time, Tama truly feels free. Then a bright golden glow radiates from Tama as the crest of the divine beast appears on her hand, flooding her with a surge of energy. She stands tall once again with her resolve unshaken, while Kaibara sneers, turning to mock her. He quips that if this were some cliché anime or manga, she'd probably beat him now and waltz off into a happy ending. But since this is real life, he assures her, none of that is going to happen. He promises that she and her friends will die right in front of her, and he'll savor every moment as he devours her alive in front of her father. Tama, though, isn't rattled by his twisted threats, while Osamu casually lights a cigarette and tells Kaibara to give her a shot because he might just be shocked by how strong a modern, independent woman can be. Without a second's hesitation, Tama rushes at Kaibara, who tries to electrocute her away, but she expertly finds an opening and lands a punch that sends him reeling. Stunned by the unexpected blow, Kaibara barely has time to recover before she headbutts him like a charging ram, knocking him off balance. The infuriated Kaibara then tries to unleash a massive attack, but Tama is already in the zone, activating a special ability known as 100 Fangs, which slashes through Kaibara's body with relentless precision, and he drops to the ground, dead in his own pool of blood. Then the exhausted Tama collapses as well, and her father rushes to catch her while Annette hurries to heal her. Then Osamu strolls up to the king, handing him the book that belonged to his wife. The king is deeply grateful and thanks Osamu for his help, but Osamu, ever the cool-headed writer, tells him to thank his daughter instead. She was the one who did everything, he merely penned a story he found interesting. But just when they think it's all over, Kaibara's body starts to levitate, rising into the sky as it undergoes a grotesque transformation. He resurrects as a monstrous centipede demon abomination. Even Kaibara himself is startled by what's happening, but then he remembers. He secretly had consumed the flesh of the previous demon king when they killed him. That dark act has now turned him into an even more powerful demon, far stronger than before. The king watches in despair, wondering if this is truly the end, as Tama lies exhausted and unable to fight. Just as Kaibara prepares to strike, his head is suddenly cleaved clean off by a swift blade. Everyone's eyes widen in shock as the daughter of the previous demon king, Waldelia, steps into view. The entire room freezes in shock, the king himself wondering what on earth is going on today. Waldelia, however, pays them no mind and walks straight up to Kaibara's twitching body, and when he recognizes her, he starts mocking her, bragging that her father was a tasty meal. This enrages Waldelia, and without hesitation, she channels a powerful dark magic beam that not only obliterates what's left of Kaibara's head, but also blows a massive hole through the castle's roof, leaving no trace of the abomination behind. Tama and the others immediately brace for another fight, expecting Waldelia to turn on them. But Osamu, unbothered by the chaos, casually appears behind the demon princess and asks if she feels better after her revenge. Waldelia is taken back to see Osamu alive, especially after she was sure she had killed him. She briefly stares him down, but rather than attack, she simply retreats to her dragon with a chilling promise to kill him the next time they meet. As the night finally gives way to dawn, a few weeks pass and Osamu and his party prepare to leave the Beast Kingdom and continue their journey. But much to the group's dismay, Tama has decided to stay behind to help her father. Back at the castle, the king comes to a realization. Tama, with her wild spirit and thirst for adventure, is not cut out for the life of a princess. She can't sit still and is always seeking the next thrill. So he decides to let her go, freeing her to rejoin her friends on their journey. Tama rushes out, overjoyed, only to find Nurm struggling to drag Osamu's coffin, a cumbersome task that Nurm clearly isn't good at. Seeing her return, Nurm brightens up knowing she's there to help drag that ridiculous coffin into whatever wild adventure awaits them next. Our group finally arrives at a colossal tree, but despite Osamu's enthusiasm, his face tells a different story. This is the legendary World Tree, a holy symbol said to protect the nation and bless anyone who visits it, and nestled beside it is a quaint little village. Tama is dying to be the one to explain all this, but Annette brushes her off like she's invisible. Annette suggests they stop by the village to pray for safe travels, but Tama isn't about to let that snub slide. Meanwhile, Osamu, with his usual dark humor, tells the girls to hurry up and drag his coffin, But everyone's in for a shock when they discover that the once peaceful village has turned into a chaotic casino town. The villagers, who once lived simple lives in harmony with nature, are now a rowdy bunch, stabbing each other over God knows what. Osamu, out of sedation pills and fresh out of hope, starts wondering if there's a good tree around to end his misery. He even has to be told to stop munching on pebbles because the others want to go to talk to the mayor. The mayor spills the tea. A few months ago, some otherworlders rolled into town, fascinated by the world tree, and decided to stay. They built the casino, attracting all sorts of lunatics otherworlders from every corner of the place. The mayor then shows them a withering leaf, explaining that ever since these otherworlders arrived, the world tree has been growing weaker by the day, and now it's beginning to wilt. The tree seems to be mourning the arrival of the otherworlders, so the mayor pleads with our heroes for their help. Osamu has a request of his own and asks the mayor if he can fill his container with sedation pills. But before anyone can answer, a stranger who overheard their conversation boldly declares that he will save the tree. He's another worlder named Yamada, so naturally our heroes brace themselves for a potential fight. Yamada insists he's not like the rest of the crazies, he genuinely wants to bring peace, so Anna is now eager to help Yamada save the world tree. But when she turns around, she realizes that Osamu has already disappeared. Osamu feels unusually light on his feet and notices his posture has straightened out. His mind and body are in peak condition, which he absolutely despises. Then as he wanders, he spots a cave with smoke billowing out, immediately assuming it's a den of iniquity. Rushing over, his suspicions are confirmed. It's a seedy, corrupt place. So Osamu asks if he can join the debauchery party, but before he can settle in, a mysterious girl appears, offering to take him somewhere even more fun. This fun turns out to be a bar, and the girl assumes Osamu's had one too many drinks. But Osamu, ever the drama king, explains that his life is so unbearably sad that he's trying to drink himself into death. The girl, unimpressed by his melodrama, explains that the cave is where people addicted to the world tree's pain-relieving leaves go to waste away. Then Osamu laments how the thought of his body becoming healthy keeps him up at night, so the girl offers to help him fall asleep, claiming all he needs to do is watch her dance. Osamu is skeptical about that, but she tells him to just watch, so he agrees. As she dances, Osamu finds himself lulled into a rare moment of peace, calling it a pleasant night. Meanwhile, Annette is losing her mind, wailing like a banshee as she frantically searches for Osamu. Her horror peaks when the girl from the bar, carrying a passed-out Osamu, shows up at the mayor's house. The mayor is immediately furious, recognizing the girl as Eshi, and scolds her for daring to come to his home. Eshi wishes Osamu a good night and leaves, but the mayor mutters about how she's just another soul ruined by her own choices. Eshi is infamous around the village, known as a witch with a dreadful reputation. She was the only one powerful enough to stand against the otherworlders when they started building the casino. But instead of fighting them, she opened a bar and started raking in cash by seducing fallen otherworlders with booze and dancing. The villagers despise her, labeling her a treacherous witch who sided with the enemy. Yamada, ever the self-righteous hero, decides that Eshi, just like the otherworlders, must face justice. The mayor is pleased with Yamada's resolve and eagerly begs him to save their town. The next day, Osamu heads out, but Anna tries to remind him that the battle against the otherworlders is about to kick off. Osamu, in his typical nonchalant fashion, replies that he never signed up for that nonsense in the first place. All he wants is the peace he finds at the bar. Annette, not one to give up easily, tries to stop him, but Yamada steps in, saying it's pointless because Osamu's already fallen under the witch's spell. Annette refuses to just let him go, but Yamada reassures her that once they fix the town, Osamu will snap out of it. At the bar, Osamu credits Eshi for helping him forget his troubled past, which finally allowed him to get some sleep. Eshi then warns him about getting too close to her, hinting that she might end up ruining him. But Osamu says that's exactly what he wants. They then toast to their misery, and Eshi begins to explain the legend of the world tree. According to her, when the spirit of the tree descends, all the weak and sick will be saved. She suggests that Osamu pray to the tree to ease his pain, but Osamu, with uncharacteristic insight, surprises her by revealing that he knows she's the one who truly needs saving. He tells her that her dancing was filled with sadness, leaving her speechless. Just then, a group of thugs barges in, ordering drinks like they own the place. One of the goons threatens another guy who lost all his money, telling him to get it back or he'll be making a donation of his kidneys. The thug then complains to his boss that the casino isn't raking in as much cash because fewer people are gambling, and he suggests they move the casino. But the boss dismisses the idea, saying they just need to lure in the villagers from across the nearby bridge. He'll be a piece of cake, just show them how much fun gambling can be and get them hooked on the world tree's leaves. Eshi, hearing this, reminds the boss of his promise not to mess with the villagers, insisting that only otherworlders were supposed to gamble. The boss shrugs it off, saying it's unavoidable now and points out that she'll make a lot more money with the added customers. But Eshi, not caring about the cash fires back, reminding him that she paid him a hefty sum in protection money to keep his hands off the villagers across the bridge. The boss completely ignores her and orders his goon to start hooking some of the villagers on the leaves. So Eshi tries to stop him, but he coldly tosses her aside. Osamu then goes to Eshi and says, "Women like you shouldn't be called witch because you're actually an angel." Just then, the ground trembles and the thugs are shocked to discover that part of their casino has been destroyed. Yamada steps forward, telling the thugs that it's time to face justice, and he doesn't exclude the so-called witch. He gears up to deliver his judgment, but Osamu shows up, visibly annoyed that Yamada has ruined his peaceful day. Osamu can't stand self-righteous people like Yamada, and Yamada in turn calls Osamu a disgrace to the otherworlders. He tells Osamu to think carefully about his next move, but Osamu just plops down uninterested. Osamu has never respected anyone who tries to lecture him, and he isn't the type to listen to a lecturer either. Determined to show Osamu what righteous behavior looks like, Yamada takes down all the thugs in one swift move, his power of judgment erupting like a force of nature. The thugs, realizing they're no match for him, decide to flee. Eshi then thanks Yamada for saving the town, and Yamada feels a sense of satisfaction, thinking she has finally come to her senses. The townspeople quickly rally around Yamada, hailing him as their hero, but they turn on Eshi, branding her a traitor. They accuse her of working with the otherworlders and speculate about how much money she made from her so-called betrayal. Yamada tries to defend her, insisting she's changed her ways, but the mob isn't convinced, and they demand that she leave the town immediately. That's when Osamu steps in, standing between Esh and the angry crowd. He boldly tells them that all people are worthless scum. The crowd thinks he's defending the witch, but Osamu explains that Eshi was the only one truly fighting to protect the town. Every night, she kept the thugs satisfied and under control, ensuring they didn't harm the villagers. Without her efforts, the thugs would have turned on the townsfolk long ago, so Osamu declares her the true savior of the town and shames everyone for throwing rocks at her. Despite his words, no one believes him, and Esh, with a resigned expression, tells the crowd it's okay. She apologizes as she leaves, and the townspeople celebrate, thinking they've successfully driven the witch out. But Yamada is horrified, realizing the gravity of what just happened. Osamu, who saw this coming all along, remarks that the line between righteousness and evil is a blurry one. Yamada, filled with doubt, wonders if it's all his fault, but Osamu simply replies that he doesn't know. All he knows is that this town willingly cast out its own protector. Our heroes then leave, and the mayor has another request for Yamada. The otherworlders have made a killing selling the world tree's leaves, so now they've decided to keep the business going and sell the leaves themselves. Yamada is horrified to hear this, but the mayor, unfazed, explains that the world tree will eventually be revived and will bless them with even more. The mayor then asks Yamada to be the town's bodyguard, ready to deliver justice if the witch and the otherworlders try to return. Yamada can't believe how twisted things have become, especially when the mayor sweetens the deal by offering him 10% of all profits. As Yamada considers Osamu's words, he starts to wonder what he's truly gotten himself into. Back with our heroes, Osamu is deep in thought and realizes he's no different from everyone in that village. He couldn't save Eshi, and the weight of that failure hangs heavy over everyone. But then they're all stunned as the world tree, once a symbol of life, begins to wither away completely. The mayor, watching his grand plans crumble to dust, is left in shock, and no one can make sense of what's happening. Back with Osamu, Eshi reappears in a completely different light form, thanking him for understanding her, and she expresses hope that he can find some peace in life before she fades away. And luckily for Osamu, Eshi leaves behind a parting gift, filling his bottle with sedation pills. Then, as he recalls her words about the tree spirit descending to grant the wishes of the sick, the truth about her identity dawns on him. And with this realization, Osamu finds a rare moment of peace and calmly munches on his pills like there is no tomorrow. The group's journey soon takes them into a scorching desert, where the relentless heat becomes unbearable. It's so blazing hot that Nurm has to stop to hydrate the magic carpet, while Osamu actually seems to find it amusing, probably because there's a chance he might pass out from heat stroke. Tama turns to Annette and asks if they really have to cross this entire desert, since all they can see ahead is endless hot sand. Annette hesitates, unsure whether they should keep pushing forward or not. She wants to take the shortest route to the Dritten Temple, which cuts straight through the desert. But given how things have gone so far, she doubts they can make it across without getting roasted alive. They're struggling, but then it hits them that Nurm seems totally unfazed by the heat. Nurm reveals that the heat doesn't bother him because he was actually raised in this area and knows how to navigate the desert like the back of his hand. This is fantastic news since Nurm can now guide them through this unforgiving wasteland. His first tip for surviving in the desert: believe it or not, it's actually safer to travel during the day despite the heat. At night, you're way more likely to run into monsters or bandits, so daytime should be the safer bet. Or so they thought until they end up getting ambushed by bandits anyway. The bandit leader, who looks like he just stepped out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, is an otherworlder named Toru. He declares that this is his territory, and if they want to pass, they'll need to pay a fee. This is the last thing Tama wants to deal with when it's already so damn hot, but they have no choice since they're cornered. And it quickly tells Osamu to hide inside the coffin. But with this heat, the coffin is basically an oven, so she changes her mind and tells him to stay outside instead. Tama and Annette spring into action, fighting off the bandits together. With all the adventures they've been through, they are far too powerful for the bandits to handle. However, it looks like Osamu has already passed out from heat stroke, and Toru sees him as a defenseless target, and decides to make his move on him instead. Miramen stands close to Osamu, ready to defend him from Toru, but he's still too scared to draw his sword. Toru stops in front of Miramen and taunts him, mocking the idea that someone who's clearly never held a sword thinks he can protect anyone. He reminds Nurm that wielding a sword means being prepared to die, and he's not above killing kids. Toru even threatens to use his scorpion venom to give Nurm a slow, painful death and asks if that's really what he wants. Nurm might not be ready for such a gruesome end, but Osamu definitely is. Osamu, half delirious from the heat, starts inching up Toru's scorpion, practically begging for that excruciatingly painful death. Toru's weirded out by Osamu's bizarre request, but assumes Osamu thinks he's bluffing about the poison. To prove he's not, Toru stabs Osamu with the scorpion, pumping him full of venom. Any normal person would be writhing in agony by now, but instead, the scorpion keels over and dies after injecting Osamu. Osamu, looking disappointed, mutters about still being alive, while Toru is left devastated over his dead scorpion. So Toru is now enraged and charges at Osamu, ready to make him pay. Nurm, still paralyzed with fear, doesn't draw his sword and just stands there as Toru moves in to smash Osamu's head. But just before he can, a beast's howl echoes through the desert. Toru's gang recognizes the sound of a desert wolf and knows they need to get out fast. So Toru reluctantly orders a retreat, swearing vengeance for his scorpion. With the danger gone, Annette starts healing the hole in Osamu's chest. But despite winning the battle, Nurm feels downcast, ashamed that he couldn't find the courage to fight when his friend needed him most. Tama steps over, trying to lift Nurm's spirits, saying it's not a big deal if he was too scared to act this time. He can just step up the next time they're in a fight. After Annette finishes healing Osamu, Nurm apologizes for not being able to protect him. Nurm is beating himself up, calling himself a coward, but Osamu steps in and reassures him, saying it's not his fault. No one starts out as a hero. People become stronger by facing their failures and pushing forward despite them. He tells Nurm not to be so hard on himself. Meanwhile, Annette is worried about the beastly sound they heard earlier and doesn't want to stick around, so she asks Nurm to lead the way. Feeling a bit more hopeful now that he can be useful, Nurm guides the group to the place where he grew up. They arrive at the Wasp Orphanage, and Nurm says they can stay the night there. As he walks inside, he spots 3 familiar faces he hasn't seen in a long time, and the kids are also overjoyed to see Nurm back after such a long time away. Kathy, the woman who raised Nurm, comes out and warmly welcomes him home. Then the group is treated to a hearty meal alongside the orphans. Nurm is thrilled to finally taste Kathy's cooking again, and today's meal is extra delicious since a generous stranger has been donating lots of ingredients to the orphanage lately. Kathy mentions she'd love to thank this kind person, but she has no clue who they are. One of the kids turns to Nurm and reminds him that he once promised he wouldn't come back to the orphanage until he had become a valiant hero, and they ask if he's managed to do that yet. Tama then watches closely to see how Nurm will respond after his stumble in the recent battle. Nurm knows he isn't a valiant hero, but he tells the kids he's technically part of a hero's party, and he's technically not lying since Osamu qualifies as a hero from another world. Osamu, however, quickly denies being any kind of hero, saying he's just an author who writes stories, so the kids get excited and beg him to tell them a story. Osamu is game and is about to launch into one of his famously depressing tales, but Kathy quickly intervenes and insists no one is traumatizing the kids before bedtime. Later that night, with all the kids finally asleep, Annette comments on how adorable they are. But suddenly, the eerie sound of the monster from earlier fills the air, and this time it sounds dangerously close. Kathy rushes out, clearly shaken, and tells them it's the howl of a wolf that's been terrorizing the area recently. The sound of its howling nearly scares Kathy to death every night, so she worries sickly about the children's safety by locking the door and firmly warns everyone that if they want to make it through the night, they need to stay inside no matter what. Meanwhile, Osamu, being his usual unpredictable self, is out on a casual night stroll and stumbles upon the aftermath of a gruesome massacre. Now, if this were a horror movie, the smart move would be to turn around and pretend he never saw anything, but Osamu, thinking this might get interesting, decides to press on. Back at the orphanage, everyone seems to have fallen asleep, and nobody has noticed that Osamu is missing yet. Tama then, in her sleep, accidentally punches Nurm square in the face, jolting him awake. As he blinks in confusion, he spots a shadowy figure lurking outside the window. Remembering Kathy's warning about the wolf prowling the area, Nurm feels a wave of fear, but he's determined to protect everyone. He grabs his sword and heads outside to check if anything's amiss. As he ventures out, Nurm bumps into a man carrying a basket of vegetables. At first, he thinks the guy might be a thief, but the man insists he wasn't doing anything shady, even if his face screams otherwise. Nurm quickly realizes that this must be the mysterious person who has been secretly delivering food to the orphanage. He asks the man why he doesn't just deliver it openly, mentioning that everyone would love to thank him. The man says he doesn't need any thanks, he's content just watching the kids' happy faces from the window, which is admittedly a bit creepy but also kind of sweet in a weird way. So seeing his intentions aren't bad, Nurm invites the man to come and sit with him. The man asks why he hasn't seen Nurm around the orphanage before today, so Nurm explains that he's been traveling, but he grew up here after his parents passed away when he was younger. He then points out the sword nearby, which once belonged to his father. Nurm shares his dream of becoming a hero worthy of wielding that sword, so that the other kids from the orphanage can be proud to have him as their big brother, even though he sometimes struggles to find the courage to pursue it. The man's eyes well up with tears at Nurm's story, and he tells Nurm he's a great kid. But Nurm just shakes his head, saying he doesn't think there's anything special about himself. To lift his spirits, the man asks if Nurm could share some stories about his travels so far. Nurm is happy to oblige, and they start swapping tales. All the while, Osamu lurks in the corner, scribbling notes because he finds Nurm's story quite compelling. Nurm and the man chat through the night, and as the sun rises, the man gets ready to leave, but before he goes, Nurm invites him to join them for breakfast, saying everyone would love to meet him. The man appreciates the offer, but insists that supporting them from the shadows is enough for him, and besides, he doesn't feel he deserves their thanks. Nurm then senses a bit of sadness in the man and wants to cheer him up, so he asks if he has some more free time to spend. The two head out into the desert, and with the man's keen sense of smell, they quickly track down an oasis. Together, they gather all sorts of crops for the orphanage. Meanwhile, back at the orphanage, Osamu has reached his limit with the kids' antics and decides to retreat back into his coffin to avoid them. Annette and Tama find this absolutely hilarious, but then they hear a noise outside, so they open the door and are stunned to see a pile of fresh food waiting on their doorstep. Later that day, Nurm is worn out from all the hard work he's been doing all morning, but he's feeling pretty good about himself for gathering so much food for the orphanage and spending time with the man. A bit later, Kathy bursts into the room with awful news. Nurm was expecting to hear about the mountain of food that had been delivered, but instead, she tells him that one of the kids, Nate, has been kidnapped by Toru's gang. Toru is right outside, threatening to hurt Nate badly unless the orphanage pays up. Tama is shocked that Toru would stoop so low as to hold a little kid hostage for ransom, but she assures Kathy that she, Annette, and Miriam will handle it, and that everyone else should stay inside where it's safe. The trio heads outside, and the moment Toru sees them, he orders his men to attack. Annette and Tama jump into the fray, fighting off the attackers, but they're struggling and can really use some backup. Meanwhile, Nurm is frozen in fear again, unable to move, but before he can become an easy target, the man from before shows up and pulls him to safety. Nurm is in tears, overwhelmed by his own cowardice, knowing Nate is in danger, but his body just won't respond. The man flashes back to a time when he too failed to protect someone he loved, and he's not about to let history repeat itself with Nurm. He turns to Nurm and tells him he will take care of everything from here on out. He confesses that he's an otherworlder and back on Earth, he lost someone dear to him because he was too weak. But here in this world, he finally has the power to protect what matters. The man then transforms, revealing that he is the very wolf everyone in the area has been fearing. And without hesitation, he launches himself at Toru and his gang. The moment they realize the wolf is upon them, Toru drops Nate and starts to run for his life. But the man now in his wolf form isn't about to let Toru get away so easily. Scum like Toru had robbed him of everything. So with his newfound strength, the man is ready to finally exact his revenge for a lifetime of suffering at the hands of people like Toru. Nurm understands the immense pain the man must have gone through, but he also realizes that if the man actually kills Toru, he will never be the kind person he once was. So Nurm finally musters the courage to draw his sword and steps in front of Toru to stop the man from delivering the killing blow. Toru tries to seize the moment to escape, but the man, driven by rage, continues his pursuit and destroys Toru's new Scorpion bike. Just as the man is about to finish Toru off, Nurm blocks his path again and drops his sword, appealing to the man's sense of humanity. This is enough to break through the man's bloodlust, and he snaps back to his senses, ashamed of how monstrous he had been acting. Nurm then extends a hand to the man, telling him it's okay, and they all head back into the orphanage to hear his story. The man reveals he had been alone for a long time, having lost his parents at a young age. But one day, a kind boy reached out to him and showed him the warmth of friendship. But those happy days were short-lived. The boy was cornered by bullies and beaten down. The man witnessed the whole thing but knew he was powerless to help, so he turned away and wheeled himself out of there, right when Truck-kun struck. Osamu's ability activates, and he comments that although he thinks the man acted cowardly, he is still kinder than most people. Even with the power of his gift, the man chose to use it to scare off evildoers rather than succumbing to the darkness. The man realizes he's being called back to Earth and expresses his gratitude, saying he's glad he got to meet everyone. Moments later, he vanishes and wakes up back on Earth, just as Truck-kun begins to leave. Looking up, he sees the kind boy coming over to check on him. Overwhelmed, he breaks down in tears, thankful to see his friend again. Back at the Demon Lord's castle, one of the 7 evil heroes learns that Keibara was slain during his attempt to take over Grun, and another of their number, Sengoku, is struggling in the desert against the dwarven strongholds. They had made the mistake of underestimating the dwarves' allies from Hellshin, and he begrudgingly admits that the so-called Wizard of Hurricanes is truly a force to be reckoned with. We cut to the desert, where a bloody battle is raging and the dwarven forces are fighting fiercely. The priests are present to lend their support, but Wolf seems more concerned with the fact that he's out of booze. Isha, exasperated, asks him how he can think of drinking at a time like this, but Wolf dismisses her concerns, telling her to stop being so uptight. Isha grabs him by the collar, reminding him that he is supposed to be in charge of this nation and should act like it. But Wolf corrects her, saying he never agreed to be the leader. The people had decided to make him their leader, even though he's just a priest, and now he's expected to fight a fallen hero. As the fallen hero's army launches a full-scale attack, Isha pleads with Wolf to do something before the city is destroyed. Wolf reluctantly agrees and asks the dwarf general Durain to help lure the enemy to the east as part of a plan, but Durain dismisses Wolf, declaring he has no intention of following orders, and instead charges at the enemy head-on with his axe. But despite his defiance, Durain still ends up luring the lizardman to the east, just as Wolf had requested. With the lizardman drawn away, Wolf instructs Isha to stand back, warning her that he's going to have to get serious with his magic. With the main enemy force now isolated, he summons a magic circle beneath their feet and conjures a massive hurricane that shreds them to pieces, so the brutal attack forces the fallen hero to retreat with his remaining troops. Wolf turns to Isha with a calm smile and tells her they won the battle for today. But as Wolf begins to walk away, Isha's eyes widen as she spots a figure floating inside the swirling hurricane. So she stares in shock, realizing that it's Osamu caught in the magical storm. After everyone returns to the city, a party is held to celebrate their victory against the fallen hero. Durain is given a seat of honor for his great contributions to the battle, and Wolf also has a seat of honor. Taking his place, Wolf thanks all the dwarves for their hard work, especially Durain. Durain acknowledges that Wolf did a good job as well, even if he is an elf. But despite their differences, the two seem to share a mutual respect, and the celebration continues. In the background, Tama and Miram are seen stuffing their faces with as much food as they can, while Isha watches them with a smile. She hadn't expected to run into Annette and the others anytime soon, so she's surprised to see them here. Annette explains that her group got lost in the desert, and before they knew it, Osamu had been swept up in a sand hurricane. Isha asks how Osamu is doing, and Annette assures her that he's fine. He only suffered minor injuries because he was mostly protected inside his coffin, though Osamu doesn't think of it as a blessing since he ended up surviving because of it. And to make matters worse, his precious coffin was destroyed, but Annette promises to buy him a new one as soon as she can. Wolf then approaches to apologize to Osamu for accidentally catching him in his hurricane and nearly killing him, but Osamu is more annoyed that Wolf couldn't finish the job properly. Meanwhile, it turns out Wolf has a familiar of his own, and Melos is completely smitten with it. Wolf asks Osamu to forgive his mistake, reminding him that they are in the middle of a war, but Osamu and the others seem confused, having no idea a war is even happening, so Isha offers to explain the situation. She informs them that their nation is currently under attack by one of the 7 fallen heroes, and as soon as Tama hears about the fallen hero, she proudly declares that she was the one who defeated the fallen hero who attacked Grun. Wolf has a hard time believing that Tama actually managed to pull off something like defeating a fallen hero, which ticks her off. She insists that her party is strong and shouldn't be underestimated. To back her claim, she mentions that Osamu has the ability to send otherworlders back to their original worlds. Wolf, however, is unfazed, saying he already heard about it during a church meeting, and in his opinion, such an ability is unnecessary. No matter what powers the otherworlders possess, Wolf is confident he can outclass them with his magic, so he tells them he doesn't need their interference and to lead the fallen heroes to him. As he walks away, Tama mutters, asking if Wolf is really strong enough to justify being such a jerk. Isha, however, confirms that Wolf actually is that powerful, and he's known as the Wizard of Storms, one of the strongest mages in the entire world. Even the fallen heroes would struggle to withstand his incredible magic. Meanwhile, back at the Demon Lord's castle, the Dark Knight returns, much to the surprise of the other evil heroes who never expected him to be forced into retreat. He brushes it off, stating it's no problem because he plans to fight in the battle personally tomorrow, and this time he is confident he won't lose. One of the other heroes, however, suggests it might be better to let the women handle this battle since they're much better suited for it. As we see a close-up of one of the women's hands, there is a rope around it, similar to the one Osamu has, implying she is Sakshin. The other woman, busy making origami, is asked if she's ready to fight. She stares back blankly, silently agreeing to join the battle. Back at the dwarf village, Osamu takes a walk with Melos, who is feeling depressed after being rejected. Osamu offers him some blunt advice, telling him to get used to the feeling of heartbreak because it's not going away anytime soon. Still, he understands the desire to be with the one you love, so he offers to help Melos find his crush. They decide to think of a name for her, and Osamu suggests they call Melos' crush Femelos. And by pure chance, they spot Femelos with Wolf, who is surrounded by a crowd of fangirls. The women fawn over Wolf, offering to take turns with him, but Wolf turns them all down for today and walks away. Osamu remarks that Wolf seems to be quite popular with the ladies, unlike Melos. However, he encourages Melos not to give up on courting Femelos, reassuring him that persistence might eventually win her over. Osamu and Melos then continue to follow Wolf and Femelos until they arrive in an old house, where Wolf knocks on the door. There's no answer, and Wolf accepts that the woman inside doesn't want to talk to him at the moment. He tells her that he must continue with the war, but once it's over, he promises to come back for her. Osamu is taken aback, surprised to see that even someone as popular as Wolf has his own complicated love story. Not wanting to intrude any further, he decides to leave with Melos, quietly departing from the scene soon after. The next day, Durain receives word that the enemy is attacking again, and it's time to head to war. Tama eagerly gets up, saying she wants to fight too, but Durain tells her there's no need. He reminds her that she and the others are guests and insists she let him handle it. Outside, Durain and Wolf then address the dwarf army, declaring that today is the day they will finally end the war once and for all. The dwarves, fueled by determination, rally for battle, and things initially seem to be going well. But suddenly, a damn dragon appears, unleashing a devastating blast across the entire area. This is the Jade Dark Dragon, a creature once belonging to the Dark Lord, now under the control of an otherworlder. Wolf feels pity for the dragon, but he doesn't see it as much of a threat. He's taken down plenty of dragons before, and this one should be no different. As he prepares to blast it with his magic, his eyes lock with those of a fallen hero riding the dragon, and suddenly he finds himself unable to cast his spell. The girl dismounts the dragon and greets Wolf as her former master. Before he can respond, she uses her powers to capture him, so Isha rushes to help. But the girl touches Isha's hand with her dark power, causing a sudden wave of weakness that brings Isha to her knees. The girl coldly states that she'll be back to kill Isha later, but for now she has business with Wolf, so she mounts the dragon again and flies away with Wolf in her grasp. Once Isha regains her strength, she urgently calls down to Durain, ordering an immediate retreat. The troops pull back to the castle, and once they're safe, Isha informs them that Wolf has been kidnapped. Durain, visibly shaken, admits he has no idea what to do. Wolf was the backbone of their defense, and without him, the troops are in disarray and the castle walls will soon be breached. As everyone scrambles to find a solution, Osamu points out to Melos that Femelos is broken-hearted over the loss of her master. He suggests that this might be the perfect opportunity for Melos to use her heartbreak to win her affection. With a plan of forming, they decide to set off to rescue Wolf, and to learn more about him, Osamu and Melos head back to the old house they saw him visit before. Hoping to uncover some details about Wolf's past, Osamu knocks on the door and asks to speak with the woman inside. After a few tense moments, the door creaks open and an old lady steps out. So Osamu realizes there might be more to Wolf's story than he initially thought. Then we see Wolf waking up, bound in front of the Dritten Temple. The girl Yuriko is there, and it's clear she has many memories of this place, having practically grown up there. Then as the temple guards realize there's an intruder, they rush out to confront Yuriko and rescue Wolf. However, given Yuriko's power, their chances of success seem slim. As Yuriko prepares to kill the guards, she thanks Wolf, explaining that it's because of him she was able to fully master her abilities. She warns him to stay out of her way so she won't have to kill him too. Back at the dwarf castle, Yisha shares her theory with the others, suggesting that Yuriko was once Wolf's student. She mentions that Wolf used to be very passionate about training otherworlders, but one day he abruptly stopped and turned to alcohol to drown his sorrows. While she isn't certain if Yuriko is the reason behind Wolf's behavior, she emphasizes that their top priority is rescuing him, so she urges Durain to send soldiers to aid in the rescue. Durain wishes he could help but explains that the castle is currently surrounded and he doesn't have any soldiers to spare. With no other options, Kema steps up, volunteering herself and the others to go rescue Wolf instead. Annette agrees and turns to ask Osamu if he is on board with the plan, but she realizes that he isn't there. He's been missing for a while. Just then, Osamu walks into the room carrying the old lady they met earlier, causing quite a stir. Annette is visibly upset, tears in her eyes because Osamu has never carried her like that before. By the next morning, the team is ready to depart for the Dritten Temple to rescue Wolf. Dorian apologizes for not being able to send any soldiers with them, but Tama reassures him, saying it's fine since he crafted new equipment for everyone. However, Osamu grumbles that the gear he ordered hasn't arrived yet, and he is far from a satisfied customer. Then Dorian tries to explain that Osamu's request was very complex and will take longer to complete, but Osamu dismissively tells him to hurry up and get it done. Isha steps in, reminding everyone that they need to get moving since Wolf's life is still in danger. But there's still the question of how they're going to reach the Dritten Temple, all the way on the other side of the desert, without exhausting themselves. Just then, they hear a voice coming from beneath the sand, and it's Toru. Tama assumes Toru is here to pick a fight again, but he quickly assures her that he isn't looking for trouble. He explains that after Nurm saved him from a mauling, he turned his life around. Now he works as a bus driver by day and protects the orphanage by night. Tama and Nurm have never heard of a bus before, so Toru decides to give them a demonstration using a random desert tiger nearby. He uses his ability to transform it into a tiger bus and invites everyone to hop aboard. Everyone climbs on, but when Osamu tries to board, Toru gives him a Sparta kick, knocking him back on his ass, and tells him that he's still holding a grudge for the destruction of his beloved Scorpion cycle. With a smirk, Toru drives off, refusing to turn back, leaving Osamu still lying on the ground without any means of transportation, resigns himself to not being much used this time around. However, the old lady pleads with Osamu, asking him to take her to Wolf. Seeing the sincerity in her eyes and recognizing how deeply she cares for Wolf, Osamu decides he can't just give up. Determined to do his best, he agrees to help her get to Wolf, despite the challenges ahead. As the others arrive at the Dritten Temple, Annette spots several guards lying unconscious on the floor. She quickly moves to heal them, but Yisha stops her, warning that traces of magic still linger on their bodies and Annette could be harmed if she touches them. So they decided to come back for the injured later because for now their priority is rescuing Wolf. When they push open the temple doors, they find Yuriko sitting calmly in a chair, with Wolf hanging above her. Yuriko introduces herself as the Otherworlder once trained by Wolf, now known as the Fallen Angel of Greed. Irritated at being interrupted during what she considers an important moment with Wolf, she uses her ability to summon a horde of skeleton soldiers to attack them. Nurm and Toru charge ahead to hold off the skeletons, while Wolf pleads with Yuriko to stop, but she ignores him. Then Annette and Yisha combine their efforts to defeat many of the skeletons, and Tama manages to wipe out a large group on her own. However, it quickly becomes clear that they won't have a moment to rest. The skeletons keep resurrecting. And with these immortal soldiers, the battle seems destined to drag on until the group inevitably collapses from exhaustion, just as Yuriko intends. The group starts to get overwhelmed, and Yisha is knocked over from behind. As she gets back up, she confronts Yuriko, asking what could have happened between her and Wolf to drive her to such lengths. Yisha knows better than anyone that Wolf is a passionate and dedicated teacher, and she can't understand why Yuriko would hate him so deeply. Yuriko then flashes back to when she first arrived in this world, and then she was practicing her abilities in the garden when Wolf approached from behind. He complimented her hard work but expressed concern that her abilities might not be suited for combat. So he told her she wasn't obligated to fight against the Dark Lord if she didn't want to and offered her a chance to live a normal life in the church. However, Yuriko was determined to join the battle, believing the people of this world needed someone to save them. Wolf respected her convictions and promised to support her as much as she wanted, but he cautioned her not to push herself too hard. Yuriko then admits that Wolf was an incredible teacher, and she cherished every moment of their training. But then one day another hero was summoned, a natural prodigy. Wolf became consumed with training this new hero and stopped giving Yuriko the attention he once did. Determined to prove herself, Yuriko continued to train her powers relentlessly. When she finally made a breakthrough, she ran excitedly to show Wolf, hoping for his praise like before. But when she found him, he was praising the new girl with a warmth and affection he had never shown her. Feeling abandoned and betrayed, Yuriko, consumed by jealousy, used her powers to murder the girl who had stolen Wolf's attention. That day, her powers truly awakened, unlocking a strength she would never have had if those events hadn't occurred. Yuriko then recalls her skeleton soldiers, admitting she knows it was wrong to kill an innocent girl out of her own feelings. But she believes that having committed such a heinous act, she no longer has the right to call herself human. Now all she desires is for everyone to die. With this declaration, she summons her most powerful creature, preparing to unleash it to slay everyone in the room. However, at the last second, Osamu bursts into the room, crashing through on his new turbo-engine coffin. This was the device he had asked the dwarves to build for him, and he's quite pleased with the results. But right now, he has more urgent matters to deal with. Osamu then calls for Melos to bring the old lady, and Melos comes flying in on a magic carpet, presenting the old woman face to face with Yuriko. At first, Yuriko doesn't recognize her, but after a moment, she realizes the old lady is actually her sister Hikari, and Osamu is now intrigued and eager to hear their story. The others also are shocked to learn that Yuriko and the old lady are sisters, so Osamu explains that Hikari had told him about their childhood on the way over. They were a close-knit family from the beginning, but Hikari was sickly and required constant care. Yuriko volunteered to stay by her bedside, dedicating herself entirely to Hikari's care. Hikari recounts how Yuriko spent all of her time looking after her, so much so that she rarely attended school even though she desperately wanted to. Hearing this, Osamu was moved by the kindness and sacrifice Yuriko had shown, and he wanted to hear her side of the story. But Yuriko, unwilling to discuss the past, summons more skeletons to cut Osamu down. Though Osamu is usually not one to pass up a chance to die, he decides to leave the skeletons for the others to handle because he can't die until he finishes writing Yuriko and Hikari's story. Hikari tries to talk Yuriko out of this madness, insisting that this isn't the real Yuriko. However, Yuriko snaps back, saying Hikari knows nothing about her. Yuriko reveals that she has always resented Hikari for stealing her social life away, and she was thrilled when she arrived in this new world, believing she might finally have a chance to make friends and build a life of her own. But then Hikari appeared again, and Yuriko felt like everything was taken from her once more. In that moment, Yuriko decided she would never let Hikari stand in her way again. So even if it makes her greedy, she's determined to do whatever it takes to get what she wants. Osamu finds the story increasingly fascinating and steps closer to Yuriko, asking her to tell him exactly what it is she wants. Yuriko, however, refuses to be patronized by Osamu and commands her creature to raise its scythe to strike him down. But just before the scythe can hit Osamu, Wolf leaps in and pushes him out of the way, taking the blow himself. The scythe doesn't sever Wolf's arm, but due to the nature of Yuriko's powers, Wolf begins aging rapidly. Yuriko freezes, horrified, as she never intended to harm Wolf. Wolf turns to Yuriko apologizing, saying he had no idea she felt so hurt by his actions back then. But Osamu cuts him off, telling Wolf to stay out of this. He insists that he wants to write a story about the relationship between two sisters, not between two sisters and a playful bishop. He tells Wolf to just sit down while he finishes his story. Then Osamu turns to Yuriko again and asks her once more what it is that she truly wants. Yuriko tries to fend him off by summoning two skeleton soldiers, but even as they strike Osamu, he is undeterred. He puts his hand on the wall, staring intently into her eyes, and asks again what she really wants. Osamu's unwavering gaze causes Yuriko to calm down, and she takes a moment to truly consider what she wants. She flashes back to the opening ceremony of her high school, where all the girls were being escorted by their fathers. Yuriko, however, was unable to attend because she had to stay by Hikari's side. She had tried asking her father if he would attend the ceremony with her, but he was so focused on making Hikari happy that he barely noticed her. Feeling ignored, Yuriko gave up asking him and watched as he left. Realizing Hikari was asleep and no one would notice her absence, she decided to go to her opening ceremony anyway, even if she had to go alone. But she had only intended to be gone for a few hours, planning to return before anyone noticed. But by the time Yuriko returned to the hospital, she saw the lights on in Hikari's room and knew something must have gone wrong. So she rushed inside and found her father thanking the doctor for his help. And as soon as he saw Yuriko, he walked over and slapped her shit out, furious that she had left Hikari alone just to have fun. In his defense, Hikari could have died without someone watching her, but he utterly failed as a parent in handling the situation. At that moment, Yuriko felt like she didn't matter to him anymore, so she turned and walked away, wandering into the night. That was when Truck Kuon decided she was a perfect target. All Yuriko had ever wanted was for someone to pay attention to her. But her desire for acknowledgement nearly resulted in Hikari's death, so she no longer felt worthy of being called a caring sister after what she'd done. Sure, she'd done some terrible things, but her longing for attention didn't make her greedy. Everyone in some way wants to be seen. Yuriko was just a kind girl, awkward and lonely even if she had a considerable kill count. Suddenly, Hikari steps forward and hugs Yuriko tightly with tears in her eyes. She apologizes, realizing for the first time how much Yuriko had suffered because of her. Osamu then asks Yuriko if she knows how Hikari ended up in this world in the first place, and Yuriko shakes her head. He explains that after Hikari woke up in the hospital and days passed without any word from Yuriko, she began to lose hope, unable to imagine a life without her sister by her side. One night, feeling utterly lost, Hikari wandered aimlessly down the street. And that was when Truck Kuon might have decided it was time for a second round. Yuriko begins to cry, realizing for the first time how deeply Hikari cared for her. Wolf is watching this and suddenly understands that he failed as a teacher. When Hikari first arrived in this world, he greeted her the way he would any other worlder. But then, Yuriko recognized her sister and ran to embrace her, overjoyed to see her again. She asked how Hikari was feeling, and to their surprise, they learn that terminal illnesses don't cross over to other worlds. In this new world, Hikari was perfectly healthy. And a little while after arriving in the new world, Hikari asked Wolf for a private conversation and requested that he train her rigorously, so she could become strong enough to defeat the Dark Lord. Hikari wanted to fight alone to allow Yuriko the chance to live a normal life in this world. She knew that Yuriko had sacrificed so much to take care of her back on Earth, missing out on enjoying her own life, so to repay Yuriko, Hikari wanted to take on all the responsibilities of a hero here, so her sister could finally have the freedom to be happy. It becomes clear that the sisters have always deeply loved each other, and Osamu feels satisfied with the story he has uncovered about them. As his ability activates, both Yuriko and Hikari are surrounded by a blue light. Although Osamu wishes to see the story's conclusion, he believes that a story like this must be completed by those who lived it. He tears out the page, and as he does, the dark power within Yuriko is dispelled. Hikari's youth is restored, along with the lives of all the others who were nearly killed. Yuriko is confused and doesn't understand what's happening, so Isha explains that Osamu's ability is about to send her back to her original world. So Yuriko accepts this calmly and stands to apologize to everyone for the trouble she caused. And then she turns to Wolf and thanks him for giving her the chance to enjoy life, even if it was only for a short time. Then she and Hikari hold hands and step into the portal that sends them back to Earth. Back on Earth, Hikari's chronic illness unfortunately returns, but Yuriko is by her side again. Also, neither of them fully remembers what happened in the other world, but their bond as sisters is stronger than ever. The scene cuts back to the dwarves still locked in battle with the lizard men, finally forcing the enemy to retreat. One of the dwarven soldiers announces to the king that victory is theirs, but the king, with a stern expression, replies that they won't truly be victorious until Wolf and the others return safely. Meanwhile, the Pope is informed that an otherworlder has been sent away from Samstag, lighted by the mysterious power Yisha had described. The Pope, clearly intrigued, believes that this must be the person he's been waiting for, the one destined to save this world. At the Dritten Temple, Wolf praises everyone for a job well done and suggests they return to Grun Castle. But Tama, never missing a chance, teases him for acting like a boss despite not lifting a finger. Anna tries to calm her down, telling her not to say things like that, but Wolf just shrugs it off like it's nothing. Nurm then tells Osamu they'll be heading back now, but Osamu, ever vigilant, senses something and says someone else is coming. Suddenly, the fallen angel of misery crashes through the roof like Batman. The fallen angel of misery then declares that with greed and gluttony both defeated, he's here to end this charade once and for all. Wolf, in typical fashion, thanks Misery for showing up, remarking that it would have been a shame if things wrapped up without him doing a thing. He then casts a wind spell at Misery, boldly claiming he'll take him down, but the spell has no effect. Misery smirks, explaining that his armor renders magic useless. Toru then steps in and attacks with his skill, but once again, Misery's armor holds firm. Then Tama tries and unleashes her King's Fong in a desperate strike, landing a solid hit, but even that fails to phase him. Misery then draws his sword, ready to strike down Tama, but Nurm leaps in and shatters the blade with his own. Misery, clearly recognizing Nurm's sword, pauses, then leaves with a cryptic warning for Nurm to sharpen his strength. Tama is impressed and gratefully hugs Nurm, calling him amazing for fending off a fallen angel, and the others also join in, commending his bravery. The scene shifts to a lively celebration at the Dwarven Castle. Isha, with a smile, tells Wolf that she's glad the Otherworlder sisters got a happy ending. Wolf, however, doesn't share her optimism. He reflects on how the sisters were unhappy in their original world, and nothing really changed for them here. Summoned for the convenience of others, but all they found was more suffering. So he openly questions the methods of the Pope and everyone at Hell's Hen. As he speaks, Sachin is shown slowly making her way toward the Dwarven Castle, slipping in unnoticed by anyone. Back in the party hall, Osamu encourages Melos to propose to Femelos, pointing out that he did help save her master after all. Nervously, Melos presents her with flowers, but his hopes are dashed as she rejects him instantly. Later, Osamu comforts the dejected Melos, telling him not to take it too hard. He says that sometimes, no matter how much you pursue someone, your efforts just aren't rewarded. As Osamu is speaking, he's taken aback when Sachin suddenly walks by. He stops her, and for the first time, we see her face as she turns to look at him. Relief washes over Osamu as he expresses how glad he is that she made it to this world and is doing okay. He tells her that he has so much to discuss with her, but suggests they should first commit suicide together. His plan is to jump from this height, which he's convinced they won't survive. But Sachin refuses, noting that Osamu has changed since the last time she saw him. There's light in his eyes now, a liveliness she hadn't seen before. Osamu, almost panicked, insists that he's still the same, claiming he's been aimlessly wandering like always. But before the conversation can go further, Tama and the others arrive, saying they were called by Melos. Sachin looks at Osamu, realizing that he's found something more valuable than death in this world. So she quietly decides she can't stay with him anymore. Shocked, Osamu pleads with her to wait, calling her name, but she walks away. His companions witnessing this scene are surprised to discover that this is the person Osamu had been searching for all along. Later, Annette and the others head to the blacksmith's shop where their gear was made, thanking him for his work. The blacksmith, Rodos, tells them to take good care of the weapons. They remind Osamu to thank him for the coffin too, but Osamu is so preoccupied with what Sachin sent to him, his mind in knots. Annette tries to lift his spirits, but he's spiraling, tormented by Sachin's rejection. In a fit of madness, he starts shoveling poison pills into his mouth. It's so extreme that the pills spill out, not even reaching his stomach, and he nearly chokes. Annette rushes to heal him while Nurm asks Rodos to check out his sword, proudly mentioning that it managed to shatter a fallen angel's blade even though he's nowhere near strong. Rodos examines the sword and admits it's too powerful for Nurm, but maybe one day he could grow into it. Then Osamu suddenly activates his moving coffin. Rodos warns that it still needs fine-tuning, and if Osamu isn't careful, it could end up killing him. Osamu, not giving a damn, says that's what he's hoping for and rides the contraption out of the shop. Tama and the rest scramble after him, while Nurm pauses to thank Toru for everything before they leave. The scene shifts to the castle of the Dark One. A tuxedo-clad man notices the fallen angel of misery unusually cheerful today. Sachin walks in, and to his surprise, she's in high spirits too. The 5 remaining fallen angels gather for a meeting, and the tuxedo man wonders how they'll deal with their dwindling numbers. Sachin snaps, telling him he has no right to speak to them like that, as he just sits holed up in the castle, watching from the sidelines. He concedes and then asks how her reunion went with the man she loves. Sachin, with a twisted smile, says he indeed has the power to change the world, and he's still as remarkable as ever, which is exactly why he deserves her. The scene cuts to Annette and the others stranded in a village, completely dumbfounded that they've lost track of Osamu. Annette starts beating herself up, calling herself a failure for not keeping an eye on him and getting them all lost. Just then, a man approaches and asks if they're lost. He informs them that they're in the village of Held, and it was the hero's final stop before heading to the Dark Lord's castle. He proudly shows off the village's famous statue depicting the hero battling the Dark Lord. But Tama smirks and points out that the statue looks like the hero is running away rather than fighting. The man sighs and explains that the statue used to show the hero courageously facing a monster, but just earlier, a gloomy-faced man on a strange vehicle crashed into it, causing it to look all wrong. He grumbles about how he hopes that man faces severe punishment, and that's when Annette and the others realize he's talking about Osamu. They rush to leave and track him down, but the man stops them, telling them it's pointless since Osamu was already speeding towards the shrine at the village's edge. He goes on to explain that the shrine is the only passage to Orange, the forbidden land where the fairy queen resides. Hearing this, Tama and Nurm exchange worried glances, wondering if Osamu is in trouble, but the man reassures them, saying that no one can enter Orange without first passing the trials. Meanwhile, we see Osamu already inside a cave, hearing a voice in his head asking if he's seeking the fairy queen's protection and wishing him luck on the trials ahead. Osamu, visibly irritated, dislikes the voice in his mind and retreats inside his coffin for some rest, his vehicle moving forward on its own. Soon enough, he encounters the first challenge, the test of strength conducted by a massive monster. Without even hesitating, Osamu runs the creature over with his vehicle. Then he does the same thing to the monster, conducting the test of intelligence and the one conducting the test of spirit. Back in the village, the man explains to Annette and the others that to enter Orange, one must pass all 3 tests. So far, the only person to ever do so was the hero, who received the fairy queen's blessing. He adds that they should just wait here, as the man they're looking for will eventually return. Annette, however, can't help but wonder what would happen if Osamu somehow manages to pass the trials. But Tama and Nurm, with complete confidence, dismiss the idea, saying there's absolutely no way that's going to happen. Osamu's vehicle finally screeches to a stop inside the cave, only to be yanked into a spatial wormhole. He crash lands on what feels like the softest bed he's ever known, the legendary cushion of the Fairy Queen. She greets him with a calm smile, mentioning that he's only the second person to ever set foot in this place. Looking around, he wonders if maybe, just maybe, he's finally dead this time. But his peace is interrupted as the fairy twins, Solulu and Alulu, pop up welcoming him to Orange, the land of the fairies. They point out that he's now in the presence of the Fairy Queen herself. Solulu, visibly irritated, asks how long Osamu plans to sit on the Queen's melon, an obvious jab, but Osamu stays put, not caring one bit. Solulu gets pissed, but the Queen cools her down with a wave of her hand. The Queen, introducing herself as Oberus, explains that she grants protection to those who make it to this sacred place. She continues, saying the fairies long for peace in this world, and it's now this job to accept her blessing and help make that wish a reality. But before granting her protection, she asks Osamu what he thinks is necessary to save the world: trust in others or absolute power. Osamu, dead inside, couldn't care less about these grand choices. He flatly states that the person he trusted has left him, and now all he wants is to die. Solilu fuming demands he pick one of the damn options, but Osamu just shrugs her off. He's had enough of this whole saving the world thing. He flops back down on the Queen's legendary cushion, muttering that after losing his soulmate Sakshin, world peace doesn't mean a damn thing to him anymore. Solilu glares at him, convinced there's something seriously off with this guy. Elulu, equally baffled, tells the Queen they might have picked the wrong person. But Oberus, remaining composed, points out that Osamu carries the protection of Eshi, the spirit of the world tree. Solilu is flabbergasted. How could such a pathetic man hold such a powerful blessing? Ober is puzzled and questions why an earnest spirit like Eshi would choose a man like Osamu. She asks what blessing Eshi granted him, and he casually replies, infinite poison pills. The Queen, still baffled, struggles to understand why Eshi would offer such a gift to someone like him. Solilu, clearly fed up, suggests they just send this good-for-nothing back right away. But Oberus reflects, saying that she once gave her blessing to a man called the Hero, who ultimately failed to bring about world peace. Now Zauberberg has plunged into deeper chaos. Elves in the north have rebranded themselves as Helsin, watching the world from afar while 7 fallen humans have defeated the ruler of Dragonkand. On top of that, countless otherworlders have entered the fray, blurring the lines between good and evil. Oberus explains that those with purely righteous hearts, who can only make righteous choices, are powerless to solve this mess. That's why she believes it's no accident that Osamu has found his way here. The world led him to this point, and she assures him that he and his soulmate Sakshin will reunite at the end of their journey. She's not asking him to save the world, but simply hopes he'll live a little longer and continue his path. Osamu, surprised by her words, wonders if Oberus is trying to cheer him up. He thanks her, calling her a kind woman. Oberus then gives him a whistle, explaining that it can summon fairies to aid him if he ever finds himself in trouble. With that, she bids him farewell and teleports him away. After he's gone, the fairy twins are left scratching their heads, remarking how strange that man was and wondering why their queen offered him their strength in the first place. Back at the village of Held, Annette waits anxiously for Osamu's return. Tama tries to reassure her, saying that Osamu will be back soon. Miriam, however, wonders aloud if Osamu will even continue traveling with them once he returns, and Annette insists that he will. Just then, Osamu crashes down from the sky, knocking over the hero's statue once again. Everyone rushes to check on him, and Osamu apologizes for making them worry. The man from earlier, now in complete disbelief, laments that the statue has never been in worse shape. Osamu pulls out a whistle he just acquired and blows it, summoning Solilu. Solilu, utterly confused, appears and asks what's going on, so Osamu asks her to fix the statue. She protests, wondering why in the world she has to do that. Just then, a portal opens and Oberus contacts her, explaining that when the Queen said the fairies would lend their strength to Osamu, she was specifically referring to Solilu helping him out. Realizing she has no choice, Solilu reluctantly fixes the statue. Meanwhile, back at the Dwarven Castle, we see Yisha seething with anger over the fact that Osamu and the others left without even saying goodbye. Wolf is amused and comments that she's starting to sound just like them. Yisha then recalls that Wolf was supposed to present Osamu to the Pope, but Wolf brushes it off, saying it's fine and admitting that it was wrong of them to interfere with Osamu's mission in the first place. The scene then shifts to the Pope, deep in thought. He contemplates the idea that the world is expecting something from Osamu. Whether it's peace or chaos, he can't quite tell. The Fairy Queen also confirms that the fate of the world has indeed been placed in Osamu's hands and that of his party. Then the final shot shows Osamu's group continuing their journey, uncertain of what lies ahead.